Hey everyone, sorry for the delay in getting started. We're running about 25 minutes behind here. We had some technical difficulties to work out, but it is I, Matthew Kadish, author, evil genius, and master of the double-bladed lightsaber, coming at you today with another Legion of Doom live stream. And we got a lot to talk about today, so let's get to our special guests. As always, I have scoured the interwebs for the greatest evil geniuses and supervillains I could find. And unfortunately, I just found these two guys. So basically, let's get right to it. He is the big man who hates sand because it gets everywhere. Please welcome MattVader. Matt, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? It says your mic is disconnected.
Okay, so it's not just me then.
Matt, can you unmute yourself? You able to do that? No. All right, let me take you out, add you back in. There you go. Say something, Matt. Matt.
He can't hear you.
Can't hear me? Matt, try leaving the stream and rejoining us. We'll see if that works. And while he's doing that, we have our second guest, who is the nerd that's so salty you can taste him every time you go swimming in the ocean. Salty Nerd, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming to the stream today. We have a lot to talk about. I am the Salty Nerd, host of the Salty Nerd podcast, which should be coming back soon. And just the overall guy on Twitter who hates other people.
The hate runs strong with Salty. Matt, thank you for coming back. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm MattVader74. You can find me on Twitter, and I think I have an account on YouTube that I don't use, and Instagram, and also on the Mixer, which I haven't used in a couple of days, but I'll be firing that up again here real soon. So here I am. I think technical difficulties free for the moment.
Yeah.
So
hopefully the stream stays that way. Don't know what's been going on this morning. Got some gremlins running around in StreamYards. But let's get to it. So the big news today, new Star Wars footage from Episode 9, Rise of Skywalker has dropped. Have you guys had a chance to see it yet?
Yes.
Yep. And slow motion and everything.
Yep. And it's pretty unimpressive from what I've seen. It's funny, the leaks that were coming out of D23, they were like of the leaks from Celebration, actually, where they were like, oh, here's the footage. And I was like, this is just footage from the first Skywalker trailer. And it turns out that was the only thing that was available because it wasn't copy stricken. Lucasfilm was going to be releasing the stuff on Monday. But we now have the actual footage, and we're going to go through it here and get your reactions and all that good stuff. So basically, the first minute or so of this new footage is just stuff from the original trilogy and the prequels, all the good stuff. And then we get into the sequel trilogy and then the new Rise of Skywalker footage. Now, this is the first new shot that we get. We can see that it is the main group, Rey, Poe, and Finn with Chewie, and they're overlooking some type of desert bazaar or Burning Man or whatever this thing is. We got kites in the air, and if you look closely at these figures, they look to be either Ewoks or Jawas. What do you guys think about that?
Oh, because of their stature, they're short.
Oh yeah, like if you kind of
they're kind of in robes and stuff.
Yeah, they have like an Ewok-y feel to them. Either that or they're Jawa, like they're very colorful Jawas or something. But there's this theory that this movie takes place mostly on Endor, and because of the crash of the Death Star onto it, it's decimated the landscape. So these could be, Ewoks 30 years later on a ruined Endor. So I guess that's always a possibility.
Was there a desert scene in the Ewok movies, or was it all in the forest?
It was all forest.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen those in forever, so.
Yeah. So our next thing here is a picture of Carrie Fisher, Leia, and she is in a forest backdrop. And then we get Story of a Generation. And,
Do you think that's the only scene that they're going to have her in?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's not going to be on it much.
Well, they decided not to go with digital Leia, so they just have to work with footage that they have, and so they can't really draw that out all that much.
Which, I mean, I can't really blame them. I'm actually kind of glad that they're not trying to do a Tarkin with her. It's too soon for that. I
wish they did a Tarkin with her. I would have rather seen like what they had originally planned. And
really?
And it wasn't like Carrie Fisher wasn't alive to give her consent. Like she signed on for 3 movies,
Yeah.
So anyway, we got a shot here of some vintage X-wings, some A-wings, some Y-wings, and some B-wings. So we're definitely getting some of the old ships back.
B-wings are my favorite.
I wonder where these were in The Last Jedi. They would have come.
So that wouldn't that little squadron right there have to be piloted by literally everybody they saved from Crate? So that would be about everybody, right?
Well, this is there's a time jump between Last Jedi and this one, so they probably found some people to fly these.
I'm trying to be funny, Matt. Come on.
Yeah. This is an interesting ship right here. This one looks familiar to me, but I can't quite place it. I think it's from one of the video games, actually.
Is that the Ghost from Rebels?
Oh, that might be. It's interesting.
I don't know. I'd have to look at it closer.
Then we got the Blockade Runner, the Corellian Corvette, I believe. That's what it's called.
Yeah, I like this shot. It's a cool feeling having these ships come out. Which I thought it was kind of weird that they're apparently coming out of hyperspace, but they're already in atmosphere over this planet that they're on. But
that's a big giant splash of member berries coming out of hyperspace. So,
But they've been exiting out of hyperspace in atmosphere since The Force Awakens, so I guess we shouldn't be surprised about that. Let's see here if we move. Okay, so we got lots of Star Destroyers, a ton of them.
Those are all Empire era, right?
Yeah,
those aren't First Order Star Destroyers.
Like we can see just how many of them.
Wow.
We got them all lined up in a row across the sky. I feel like this might be like a flashback or some type of vision, or something.
So,
then
real quick, can we talk about that scene real quick?
Yeah.
The Star Destroyers, do you guys remember the storyline in the Thrawn trilogy where they found this hidden armada of ships that had been tucked away from the Empire? Do you think they're going to play into that?
No, I honestly think that this is either a vision or this is the First Order and their like salvage fleet or something. I honestly don't think it's anything as clever as what was in the EU. But a caveat to that is that we have it juxtaposed with this image of Finn and this new character looking at something, and this could be them looking at all the Star Destroyers and being like, "Oh gosh, we're in deep poodoo or whatever."
That's Lando's daughter, right?
Is it?
I think so.
I don't think that's official.
But
I think that's strictly speculation.
All right.
Just because she's a strong, independent black woman does not mean Lando's daughter. She don't need no man. Like
not everybody has to be related.
Yes, they do. Come on now.
All right, so now
Go ahead.
Oh.
What were you going to say, Alex?
I was like, this is my favorite shot right here. I was so excited I couldn't help myself.
So we have evil 3PO.
It's just fantastic.
He's evil because he's got the red eyes. Either that or he's hungover. So this is drunk 3PO after a night of partying.
You must not recognize me because of the red eyes.
At least his arm's not red anymore, right?
Yeah, he traded in the red arm for the red eyes.
Now they can sell more action figures of 3PO with red eyes.
Oh, yeah. You have the regular 3PO and then the red eye 3PO.
Yep.
My theory is that Palpatine, his essence takes over 3PO. So what we're really looking at here is Emperor Palpatine.
Sweet. Yeah.
Everyone's thinking it's Matt Smith, but it's actually 3PO.
It would be so funny if Palpatine just jumps across each character, like he possesses Kylo, then Rey, then 3PO. He just keeps jumping across.
Yeah, pull a Darth moment, right? With
Yep.
Well, people are saying like, oh, well, 3PO was built by Darth Vader, so he's got special dark side powers.
Anakin was like 8 years old.
Still, it was Vader. Vader created him.
I always thought that was dumb.
The maker.
Oh, Vader created 3PO.
Now this is an interesting one. We get a image of, and this goes by really quick in the footage. We get an image of a freaking laser beam from the sky, hitting what looks to be some type of planet. It's hard to say. Like I think this might be the planet that we saw in the first trailer with the ship was going into land where Kerry Russell's character was, or something like that. But I mean, who knows? This looks kind of like a smaller version of the Starkiller laser, but who knows?
Yeah, I'm thinking if you play the clip, you don't have to play it, but when you're watching it, it actually pulses like this initial hit, and then it kind of like gets bigger for a second. It kind of gives like a pulse, and then it really hits hard and it blows that area up. Go ahead, Matt.
No. I was just going to be stupid, but you finish your thought.
I was going to say, this planet, like, it's a good thing that you mentioned that with that new characters on that planet with the ship, with the snow and the rocks. This also matches the planet that Kylo Ren in a couple of minutes gets off and walks through the snow with a bunch of rocky background. So I think there's a lot that's going to happen on this one planet. And this is also the same nighttime sky snow planet that we see the evil Rey come up in a minute too.
It's also the same kind of hue and sky that we saw all those Star Destroyers lined up with.
Yes.
A minute ago.
Exactly.
I think they're using the laser beam to drill a hole to the center of the planet, and they're going to put a drop of this red crap in it that they cause singularity in a black hole to destroy the planet. So
and then the Enterprise comes out at warp speed.
Yeah.
So now we've got the shot of Rey in a forest, and she's obviously training. We got the training drone right here. She's throwing her lightsaber because she doesn't actually need anyone to train her. She's training herself. She can cut down trees.
Don't know that.
I didn't even notice the training drone the first time I watched it this morning. So
no, you have to go through it frame by frame to see it. You miss it. But if you notice that this area looks very similar to this area. So my guess who's training Rey?
Oh no.
Leia. Leia has taken over her Jedi training because, of course, Leia Poppins is one of the greatest Jedi masters ever. And my guess is that after Rey's training scene, because you remember the scene where they're hugging in the trailer, Leia says, "I must leave you now," and then she just disappears into the Force, like Luke, becomes one with the Force, because that's how JJ rolls.
Well, yeah. What else is he supposed to do? Come on, Matt.
I think he could think of some better ways to handle this, but
she's got to go somehow. You can't knock him for having to work with old footage.
I can.
And he will.
They could have planned out a trilogy and shot them all at once, but no, they couldn't be bothered to do that. So
yeah,
I can blame him all I want.
What's this red sash she has on her arm? That's kind of weird, huh?
Yeah, a lot of people were saying that this is kind of like a callback to the theory that she's a clone of Luke's hand, so they wanted to call attention to her hand. I think it's really just like a part of her training thing, like she's got some type of thing tied to her hand. So I mean, who knows? But she catches her lightsaber, which appears to have been fixed after it got destroyed in The Last Jedi.
I don't think JJ recognizes that movie exists.
All she has to do is go to Baku and shell out $200 for a new one at the junk traders. So,
but this is kind of interesting. Like right here, like I don't know if this is part of her outfit or if this is actually some type of scar on her arm.
Yeah, it's weird. Huh?
Definitely looks like a scar. Yeah.
Yeah. And so here's that shot that Alex was referring to of Kylo Ren getting out of his TIE fighter. So that's definitely the TIE fighter that was trying to run down Rey in the trailer.
Yep.
And he's on a very barren, desolate planet with lightning strikes.
That same lightning is from the shot with the Star Destroyers, too.
It's very blue.
I got to say, though, this this is a cool shot, man. This guy walking through the snow like that, like he's on a mission. He's doing something. He's got.
He looks like he's on the moon. Doesn't look like snow to me.
You don't think that's snow?
There's cracks in the ground here. This is like rocky, sandy.
Yeah, that's dirt.
Huh. White dirt.
You know what this might be? This might be like, so after Rey does the leap over the TIE fighter, he crashes, he gets out, and there's this new force power where when they fight all this stuff like they're flashing back through time or something like that. This might be like the cloud thing that goes around them. So like they're probably in the desert at this point, and this is just like some new force power that Kylo suddenly has, and this is a build up to their final fight. That's going to be my guess.
You're just giving this thing no chance, are you?
Alex, this is a legitimate theory. Come on.
Why is that lightning going up from the ground into the sky? Is that what that looks like right there?
Yes.
I don't know. But if you think my theory is stupid, wait till I'm proven right. And you're like, wow, J.J. Abrams actually put that in the movie.
I'll buy you a drink.
All right. What do we got here? Okay, so here's
yes.
Here's the big money shot. This is where Kylo and Rey are actually fighting. And someone pointed out that this is actually the trench from the Death Star right here. You can kind of see this is where the X-Wings went to hit the exhaust
turret over there, right?
It's not the first Death Star, though. It's the second Death Star on Endor. So
yeah, but it's the same design. It's the Death Star trench.
Maybe.
So they're going to be fighting on this in the middle of the ocean.
Which, I mean, visually, you got to give it to them. Visually, that's cool. I mean, the only thing better than fighting over lava is fighting over the ocean.
We got Pandora Barzad on Twitch saying, "Why, hello there." Hello there, Pandora. It's good to see you guys. We got a comment from Neil. Also, why should I give a crap about Rey and Kylo fighting yet again when Rey beat him twice? That's a good point.
That is...
Like Kylo's basically, going 0 for 2.
Yeah, that's a valid criticism. But again, I feel like JJ is literally just trying to ignore The Last Jedi. Everything that was in that movie is gone in this trailer and in this footage that we've seen.
Neil also said, "Don't get me wrong, it has cool visuals, but I remembered the prior movies." So, Alex, if you remember, The Last Jedi had very cool visuals.
This is true,
but it was terrible.
Yes. Different writer, different director. I'm trying to be optimistic.
There was no sign of the Knights of Ren in these clips at all.
No, that is true. But we have seen photos of them, and they've been kind of headlining the visual art style books and all that stuff. So they'll definitely be here.
Our good friend Jesse Miller said, Lando's going to die. I guess he met Billy D. Williams at a convention, and he asked him if he was killed in the new movie, and Billy wouldn't answer him. So he's assuming that Lando's going to die, and he also thinks that we were looking at a Jawa camp at the beginning there.
It could be correct.
He also says this is going to be a movie about global warming because suck it.
Lando's going to go out in a blaze of glory with the Falcon.
Okay, so, and then finally we have Neil saying, "I'm Leia Poppins, y'all."
I hope Kylo wins. Honestly, I hope he just kicks her ass. I want to see him win one time. This poor guy just can't.
Way to support the patriarchy, Alex.
Can't catch a break.
But just to be fair, this is a pretty cool shot right here.
Sure.
JJ is nothing if not a good visualist. Like, he knows how to make these set pieces work. And then we got the Emperors talking over this stuff.
Yeah, he says your journey is at an end, which is an interesting quote. I was trying to dig into what that might mean. Here's the money shot.
Yeah. Here's the big thing.
Boom.
Is
Okay.
that Rey?
It looks like Rey.
It's not Carrie Russell.
No, it definitely looks like Rey, but she's got like one side of her face looks like messed up, like it's almost scarred.
Maybe that's it.
Yeah, you're right, huh?
We've got the double-bladed lightsaber here, but I mean, like this obviously, I mean, this looks so CG.
Yeah, it really does.
That I'm thinking that like this can't be, you know, a real part of the movie.
Drunk 3PO says that this is a clone.
Well, that's one of the theories. So one of the theories is that Rey is a clone, and that there are other clones that are evil, and that Palpatine planned to unleash these, at some point. The other theory is that this is actually a vision. So this isn't real. This is just a vision of a possible future.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's legit to say that basically J.J. Abrams would never do a big plot twist reveal like this in a trailer. Like he's shown, I mean, just look at Star Trek Into Darkness. Like he fought tooth and nail to keep the con twist secret, up until the release of the movie. And so like if Rey really was going to go dark side, I highly doubt that he'd release it in this sizzle reel from D23, because that's a huge revelation if true.
Yeah,
I think this is more of a fake out than anything. That's my guess.
Yeah, that sounds logical, but why be logical when we can say Rey's going dark and the whole thing's going to get the script is going to flip and we're going to leave off the end of the trilogy is Rey walking off with a red lightsaber and running the Empire.
Well, I mean, I think that's the whole point. Like, we were kind of complaining before about how there's no buzz for Episode 9. Like, nobody cares. And so, like, I feel like this is a cheap trick to try to drum up controversy or buzz for this upcoming release, because, all the Star Wars faithful are going to be jumping all over this and theorizing and fan fictioning and all types of stuff.
I like the idea that the whole cloning thing, because that was set up in some of the extra material that was given to us after The Force Awakens and some novels and stuff. There's a lot of setup for Palpatine having some kind of a crazy base on Jakku where he was doing cloning and stuff like that. It was all hinted at in the extra material.
Yeah, heaven forbid they actually put it in the movie.
Yeah. Well, that's Rian Johnson's fault.
I think it's JJ's fault too. Neil says Episode 8 should have had Rey turn to the dark side and Kylo go back to the light side. It would have made The Force Awakens worth it.
I agree.
I don't know about that. I don't know. And then over on Twitch, got Pandora again. Don't worry, Darth Vader's coming back.
Gotta hope so.
Yeah, one can hope. Let's bring Vader back to save.
Let's have a real bad guy in these movies.
Did we lose Alex again?
I don't know.
His screen just went black.
Man, everything is there. He is.
Sorry, I just got a phone call. That's why.
Oh. Technical difficulties. Okay, so the other big money shot here is this, where
that's pretty wild.
That's cool.
She
I know some
basically
people
now has a double-bladed lightsaber, which kind of mirrors her staff technique.
Yep.
But guys, I mean, come on. Who here actually believes that Rey is that Disney's going to have their biggest Star Wars princess turn evil?
Not in a million years. It would be the coolest thing ever if they did do it, but it's not going to happen.
I don't think they have the testicular fortitude to pull something like that off. I would
love it, man. If they do it, I will buy into this movie 100%. But like you said, it's very, very unlikely. But I hope they do. I mean, honestly, just go all out,
Well, JJ has gone on record as saying, with this movie, he was just like, F it, I'm going to do whatever.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
That's the only thing that's the one little nugget of information that I keep trying to hang on to for hope. I'm like, he said he was just going to go all out. So please just go all out.
JJ's biggest thing is that he can't finish anything, right? So maybe he goes like huge on this and just like really finishes it up. And
so Kelly Marie Tran apparently, the actress who plays Rose Tico, Kelly Marie Tran, let it slip that apparently this scene happens towards the end of the movie. When she was doing some type of interview, she was like, I was surprised they showed that because it happens towards the end. And apparently she wasn't supposed to say that. So, in addition, so like my initial theory is that this is some type of vision that Kylo Ren has, that Palpatine's showing him of a possible future. But in addition to that, it could be that this is the cliffhanger that JJ ends the saga on, to show that new Skywalkers are rising up, but now Rey is the evil one that they have to fight against. She's the Darth Vader going forward. I don't know. So that's pretty much all the big footage from the new Star Wars sizzle reel. Let's hit some comments here, and then we can go to your final thoughts. So Pandora says maybe as a spy of sorts, possible fake out. I definitely think this is a fake out. I don't think they'd reveal this big of a plot twist in a sizzle reel release footage. Neil says, I don't. If they did, I'd give JJ a bit of credit, but this is a misdirection. Yeah, they're definitely, I'd give JJ credit if he actually had the balls to turn Rey evil, but I don't think he does. I think that this is a fake out. And wanted to say hi to my good buddy Mario. Thanks for watching us on Facebook. So, guys, what are your final thoughts on the sizzle reel? Did it get you hyped for episode 9? Are you excited about these developments? What do you think is going to happen in the coming months leading up to the release of this movie? Let's start with you, Alex.
This little, how many seconds was it? Maybe 45 seconds or so of actual episode 9 footage. I'm more excited about The Mandalorian, to tell you the truth. I think that's going to be where I'm going to be heading towards coming up in the next couple of months. But I mean, the trailer looks cool. Of course, trailers are meant to look cool. They're supposed to get you excited. And there's some cool imagery in there. We have no idea what the story is about. But I think they're going to drop that probably sometime in October with the actual official trailer. We might get some plot details. Besides a couple of cool, like, almost fan art style stuff that we see, like, oh, here's X-Wings and here's the Star Destroyers and here's Rey with a red lightsaber. Like, that's all cool, but it's not getting me any more hyped for the actual story, because I don't know where he's going to go or where he could go with this, with what he was left after episode 8. So I don't know. We'll see.
What do you think, Mr. Vader?
I think that they gave us just enough to keep us talking about it until an actual trailer drops. There's some flashy pictures in there, evil Rey and red-eyed 3PO and stuff. It's just fun stuff to me, and I guess we'll see how it goes. I mean, it doesn't get me any more excited about the movie. It's like Alex said, I'm looking more forward to The Mandalorian and what they do on Disney Plus in this movie. I want this trilogy done and over with so we can move on from it personally. So
I'm definitely more excited about the Star Wars TV offerings, because I don't like any of the characters of the sequel trilogy. I'm not invested in them.
No.
The Last Jedi left such a bad taste in my mouth that I honestly don't care how this saga concludes at this point.
I agree 100%.
And I would be perfectly fine if after this movie comes out, Disney were to come forward and be like, you know what, we screwed up. We're decanonizing these 3 movies. We're letting Benioff and Weiss redo.
Oh no,
episodes 7 through 9.
No.
I'd be okay with that until those movies turned out to be terrible. Yeah, I mean, I just like Matt said, we got a lot to talk about from this leaked footage, and we'll have more to talk about once the next trailer comes out. Even the poster for this created a lot of talk on the interwebs. But you know what? None of it was very positive talk. All this stuff, it's like people are still not excited to see this movie.
We're all very cynical.
We are,
right.
and that's because of The Last Jedi. Like, yeah. I think if JJ had written and directed all 3 of these movies, we probably wouldn't be as down on them. But because Rian Johnson so screwed the pooch with episode 8, everyone's just like very bitter. And I mean, when I came out in support of the Mandalorian trailer, because I thought it was great and I was really excited to see it, people were like, oh, don't get too positive. Disney's going to screw this up. And it's all because of that episode 8 fallout. It's all because of The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
People just hate Lucasfilm and Disney right now because of The Last Jedi. I mean, that's basically what it all boils down to.
It also has a lot to do with the actions of a couple of Lucasfilm employees. It's just that everybody's in a bad mood after that movie, and I'm honestly like, if you were given the idea like, okay, here's what Episode 8 did, here's the next episode, you have to finish up this entire saga, finish these character arcs, but you were given The Last Jedi. Like, I don't know even if the greatest writer or director in the world could come in together and fix this. It's just kind of be like, this is just damage control at this point. So I'm trying really hard to take it easy on JJ. He got handed a freaking bag of scrambled eggs and said, here, finish this stuff, see what you can do.
But it was his own darn fault, Alex, because he could have sat down, he could have mapped this stuff out, he could have had at least treatments for the next 2 movies done that he would hand off to these other guys and be like, hey, you have to follow these.
I thought he did. I thought
he did.
I thought they had an outline, and then Rian Johnson said, threw it away.
Daisy really said that JJ had an Episode 8 kind of laid out for what he wanted, and Ryan just ignored it.
He might have had like a sentence or 2 for what he wanted, but he didn't have an actual outline or treatment for the scripts going forward. Because you got to remember, Rian Johnson was writing the script as the Force Awakens was being filmed. So that tells me that there was no structure there. Rian Johnson was just free to kind of do whatever he wanted. But even if like they had some treatments done and Rian Johnson threw that away, JJ should have stepped up and be like, no, you need to follow the plan.
Yeah, but at that point though, JJ was done, right? He wasn't coming back for the 3rd movie. He
wasn't supposed to be coming back to direct any of these things, but because he set the stage, like there should have been someone, either him or Kathleen Kennedy, to kind of stand up and be like, hey, we had a plan, you need to follow the plan.
Honestly, you just spelled it out right there. I don't really blame JJ. JJ is just a director. He wrote and kind of set up the first one, which people criticize, and that's totally fine. I understand that. But Kathleen should have gone forward with this character arc and these setups that JJ had done, and Rian Johnson just didn't want to, and she was like, okay. It's just
I blame them both personally. I think JJ could have stepped in at any point and been like, hey, Ryan, don't go too far afield here, but I don't think they expected it to be that big of a mess when it came out.
I mean, Rian Johnson said, well, he had Luke on an island. I didn't know what to do with him. I'm like, how dumb do you have to be to not know what to do with Luke Skywalker?
Yeah.
Like, I lay it squarely on his feet and Kathleen Kennedy for not keeping him under control. I don't blame JJ. JJ made a reboot of A New Hope, which is bad enough as it is. You guys can criticize him for that, but there's no excuse for what The Last Jedi was.
Neil makes a good point here. The Last Jedi did what no sequel should ever do, which is write an ending into a corner without a hook. Every great sequel does this. Kung Fu Panda 2, Empire Strikes Back, Infinity War. Yeah, The Last Jedi felt like an end.
That's what Daisy really said in her interview the other day. She was like, yeah, my character kind of ended in 8, so I didn't really know where they were going to go with this. It's so crazy.
All right, so we are not done hating on Disney quite yet. Our next story brings us to the news about Spider-Man leaving Marvel's expanded universe due to the negotiations between Disney and Sony breaking down. And we've got 2 stories here that we're going to kind of cover on this, but let me read through this stuff and we'll get to your reactions. So headline, Spider-Man's exit from Marvel Studios explained, why it happened and who's to blame. This comes from Screen Rant from Mansoor Mithiwalaya. Sorry if I butchered that name, but you have a very weird name. Sony and Marvel Studios' deal to share Spider-Man is officially over, but what really happened and who is to blame for Spidey's exit from the Marvel Cinematic Universe? So for those of you who don't know, it came out a couple days ago that negotiations had broken down between Sony and Disney in the sense that Sony owns the movie rights to Spider-Man, and a while back they had come to some type of agreement to share the character where he would appear in the MCU in Disney's films, and he would appear in solo films that were produced solely by Sony. And Sony Pictures went through one trilogy and 2 additional Spider-Man movies before eventually agreeing to share the character with Marvel Studios. And for a while, it was great. Tom Holland joined the MCU as Peter Parker Spider-Man, and he starred in 5 movies, beginning with Captain America Civil War. Culminating in Spider-Man Far From Home's release in July, Marvel Studios was riding high off of Avengers Endgame, record-breaking run at the box office, and Sony Pictures was ready to reap the rewards of their partnership. Sony and Marvel simply sharing Spider-Man wasn't the only major aspect of the landmark deal that they reached in 2015. While the fine print of that contract was never shared with the public, certain agreements and clauses have been well circulated. On the cover, Spider-Man would exist within the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which meant that Marvel Studios was free to team up with the superhero and anyone they wanted to in practically any film they wanted him in. But they also had to develop solo movies under Sony. That started with Spider-Man Homecoming, Spider-Man 3. Since Sony would be fronting the cost of production and marketing for all the solo Spider-Man films, they would also retain all the revenue generated from them. But at the time, Sony offered Disney 5% of first dollar grosses, which the Mouse House waived. I don't know why they would waive grosses on that, but who knows. However, it's not like Disney wasn't getting anything out of the deal besides using Spider-Man. Since they were spending the time to make the standalone movies, Disney and Marvel Studios were allowed to keep all the money from Spider-Man merchandise sales. For some of the characters, that might not mean much, but for Spider-Man, that's a gold mine. And if there's anything Disney is truly good at doing, it's selling merchandise from retailers, their own stores, and their theme parks. Overall, it was a fair deal for everyone involved. I'd like to point out that there are reports that Sony sold the merchandising rights back to Disney like a while ago, so I don't think that was part of the agreement, but that's kind of up in the air. Unfortunately, the Spider-Man partnership between Sony Pictures and Marvel Studios suddenly collapsed in August of 2019, mere days before Spider-Man Far From Home passed Skyfall to become Sony's new record holder. And while blame was immediately tossed around amongst the fans online, the real reasons why everything went awry boils down to business and money, which is very similar to Kevin Smith's theory that life is nothing but bitches and money. Sony wanted to continue the partnership as it was for the past 3 years, while Disney wanted more out of it, not just merchandising sales. With the MCU's Phase 4 developing several new characters, as well as Marvel's TV shows for Disney Plus, for the first time, Marvel Studio President Kevin Feige has his work cut out for him. And with Marvel regaining the movie rights to the X-Men and Fantastic Four as a result of Disney's acquisition of 21st Century Fox, there's even more for Feige and Marvel to handle at this time. So according to Sony's official statement on the matter, Feige simply couldn't continue to work on solo Spider-Man movies since they didn't own the IP. To solve this issue, Disney offered to split the production costs, but also take half of the box office of future Spider-Man movies, reportedly extending to Venom 2 and other spin-offs. So Disney was offering to basically co-finance all Marvel properties that Sony was looking to make. They'd cover 50% of the cost for 50% of the revenue. Sony rejected the offer. To them, they would rather take the chance of the next movie earning a little less than sharing the profit, because 100% of $800 million is more than 50% of $1 billion. And so Sony countered Disney's offer, but somewhere along the line, the Mouse House wouldn't budge. For Disney not sharing in the profits means working on the films would have been a wasted time, and they incorrectly believed Sony needed them to survive. It's safe to say that the biggest blow from the Sony-Marvel deal breaking down is that Spider-Man will no longer be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So they're basically dropping Spider-Man from the MCU. Tom Holland is still attached to Spider-Man 3 and Spider-Man 4 for Sony, which means that Sony plans on continuing the current live-action iteration of the Web-Slinger, though it might be without director John Watts. But in doing so, they will have to avoid all connections to the MCU. It's certainly doable, albeit tedious, for the writers narratively. Sony can adapt Kraven's Last Hunt and a bunch of other crap. At this point, Sony reportedly considered making Venom rated R, but since they hope to potentially cross over Venom with Spider-Man in the future, they made the film PG-13 to go along with the MCU's family-friendly tone. Now that the deal is over, Sony could move forward with an R-rated Venom 2 and still have Holland appear as Spider-Man. But for some reason, that's not something that they want to do anymore. Then evolving Spider-Man's story as well as his rogues gallery would be the next step, as would potentially doing more spin-offs. Now, in addition to this, I'm not going to read through this article, but I wanted to point out another Screen Rant article, this one by Molly Freeman. The headline is Dark Phoenix could be to blame for Spider-Man leaving Marvel. And basically what this article says is that after Disney acquired X-Men and Fantastic Four, they basically have so much on their plate in terms of planning that they didn't want Kevin Feige focusing on Spider-Man and taking his attention away from this stuff because he's getting spread pretty thin. And it also kind of talks about how Alan Bergman, who was the Walt Disney Studios co-chairman, was kind of bullying Sony. He was throwing Disney's weight around trying to get these co-financing agreements to go forward. And Sony was like, oh, screw that. We don't need you guys. You've given us the template. We can do this ourselves now. So I'd highly recommend anyone interested in the Spider-Man Disney breakup, check out these two articles. But what I want to know now is, what do you guys think of this mess? Alex, what are your thoughts on the breakup between Sony and Disney?
I think it's a real shame for the fans. I think we're the only ones that are really losing in this right now, because Tom Holland in the MCU with the rest of those characters was a great addition, in my opinion. I think he really nailed that character in this universe. And being able to play off those other characters that we've been watching for 10 plus years, I think it was a great opportunity for them. So for this to fall apart is a real bummer for me, because I was looking forward to seeing where he was going to go. They were kind of leaning towards setting him up as at least one of the main pillars of the Avengers, and that's not going to happen anymore. So I understand Sony's position, though. Disney was reaching into their pocket and trying to take more than what they had already been taking. So for them to have access to the merchandise plus 5% on the movie profits, in my opinion, sounded like a pretty dang good deal for Disney to be able to promote the rest of their characters to put them in a Spider-Man movie. So I understand Sony's position. I know why they did what they did. It's just a real bummer. And I hope that they can, at the very least, I hope that they can kind of salvage what's left and use Tom Holland to the fullest of his abilities and put him in their own Spider-Man universe. And I tweeted out the other day a poster, a fan-made poster of Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland all dressed up as Spider-Man, like looking over the city. And I'm like, if you're going to do it, you better do it, because this is this is going to be a moneymaker. You have super fans of Tobey Maguire. You have people who loved Andrew Garfield, and you have people who love Tom Holland. You do like a Into the Spider-Verse style movie with those three characters, and I think that'll make a ton of money.
Mr. Vader, what are your thoughts on this?
I think it's a shame that they lost this iteration of Spider-Man. As far as I'm concerned, he's entrenched in the MCU now, and for him not to be able to interact with those characters that he's been with for the last 5 movies that they've had him in, right? 5 movies. It's a shame, and I just think it's a big jarring jolt to the character to have to be yanked from the MCU and thrown into whatever they do with him there in Sony, man. I mean, if it was me, I don't know if they can do this, but I would probably make a Miles Morales movie if I was Sony and let Peter Parker stay with the MCU and just develop a whole different kind of thing over there. But
well, I was one of the people who was initially surprised that this deal ever existed to begin with, because it's almost unprecedented to see 2 rival studios share a character, and the way that these guys did. So the fact that we ever got Spider-Man back in the MCU to begin with was a huge surprise.
To me, it's like it'd be like DC having Batman and Superman, but having Warner Brothers or Sony or somebody having Wonder Woman, and they're trying to make a Justice League movie. It'd be impossible, and it's just the whole thing's crazy to me. I've never liked it from the beginning. I didn't like it when all these companies bought all these different pieces of Marvel, and I understand why they did it at the time, but I think Spider-Man belongs with Marvel and Disney, and I think that's just. I honestly wish Disney would just buy Sony at this point to get them all under one roof. But that's probably
I honestly think that this really came down to Kevin Feige, because I think he was doing a lot of work on these Spider-Man movies. I think he was kind of behind the scenes. He was very involved with Venom. And I think that because, they're Disney's, Marvel Studios people were so putting in so much work into these Sony movies and not getting anything out of it in terms of money, I think that was a big motivator for Disney to be like, hey, we need Feige to focus on our stuff. He's our golden boy. If you want him to continue with Spider-Man, you need to let us have a cut of these movies. And of course, Sony, they don't have a lot of big franchises at the moment. So Spider-Man is their biggest franchise. They didn't want to give up a cut of that. So I think that the article where it talks about how X-Men needing Kevin Feige's attention and Disney wanted to pull him away from his duties on the Sony films to focus on that, I think that makes a lot of sense. But I think this also comes down to the first deal was negotiated between, I believe, Amy Pascal and Kevin Feige. And this one was negotiated by the new head of Sony, Tom Rothman, and Alan Horn, and this other guy, what's his name? Alan Bergman over at Disney. And so I think that you got the two hard-headed bosses trying to do these negotiations, and neither of them wanted to budge, and they both wanted to throw their weight around. I think that's one of the reasons why this thing kind of collapsed. But unfortunately, it looks like this isn't going to get resolved. We can expect Spider-Man to not show up in any future Marvel movies until
that's a shame.
They get the rights back, which at this point is dubious that they ever will, because as long as Sony puts out a new Spider-Man movie every 3 years, they'll be able to hold on to those rights, unfortunately. So let's look at some comments here. Mladen Kulik says, Sony won the battle. Yay. I don't know if I can root for either studio in this, because I think they're both kind of crappy in how they're handling things. What do you guys think?
I think, it's like I said, I think Spider-Man is a Marvel character and he should be ran by Marvel. That's my only thought on it. And, that's that.
Alex, do you think Disney or Sony are the bad guys in this?
That's hard to say, man. You put out a good point. I wouldn't really think about the amount of work that Kevin Feige put into this, and he's basically the usher for Peter Parker into the MCU. So, if Disney thinks that his worth is more than what they were getting, they might have a leg to stand on. But like I said when I was doing my comment on it, it's like the only people who are losing right now are the fans. Like the studios don't care; they're going to make money either way. We're the ones who were hoping to see his story continue on in the MCU, and that's not going to happen now because both these people can't share a toy. They're like my kids.
All right, so we got a comment here from Jesse Miller. It says, Matt, you were very knowledgeable about business matters. Can you hit me with what Venom actually produced versus the initial monetary input? So it looks like the Venom film was made for about $100 million. And I believe that it grossed around $800 million at the box office. So if you go by the rule of thumb that movies cost double what they take to make in terms of breaking even, Venom needed to make $200 million to break even. It made around $800 million. So that's $600 million in Sony's pocket there. Did you guys see Venom, by the way, either of you?
I have not yet.
I watched it for the first time last week. I enjoyed it.
I heard mixed reports. Some people said it was great. Some people said it was dumb. I didn't know.
I didn't think it was great, but I had a good time.
Yeah.
If you turn your brain off, it's an enjoyable film.
For me, it was weird seeing Tom Holland actually speak lines because I'm used to him in Mad Max movie where he doesn't have any. So, watching him act is strange.
Tom Hardy. Tom Hardy, you mean?
Yeah. Isn't that what I said? Tom Hardy?
No, Tom Holland.
Okay. I'm getting my guys mixed up. You know what I mean?
2 Toms. Yeah, like I thought Venom was okay. Like it was definitely, it definitely had its issues. There were some pacing issues. There were some plot issues. But overall, it was a fun movie. It was like a movie where like you could just go there, eat your popcorn, and walk out. It's like, yeah, I enjoyed that, and then you forget about it 2 seconds later.
Yeah.
It was a CGI splatter fest. You know, like all these tentpole popcorn movies are these days.
So Thomas Berg says, when is the Disney fatigue setting in? It feels like everyone else is giving up. I don't think there's going to ever be Disney fatigue. I mean, they've been going for how many decades now, and they have so many different types of properties that you don't get bored with them. I mean, Alex, you still like the Pixar movies, right?
Heck yeah, that new one that they just announced, the D23, the Last Dragon, that looks cool. I'm like, that's a cool concept, cool art.
Movie.
It wasn't. It was. It's just a straight Disney movie.
It's a Disney movie. The next Pixar movie is Soul. It's about jazz.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I mean, Disney has so many different, types of movies that they produce. I don't see anyone getting tired of them anytime soon. And Thomas, you're new here, but thank you for watching. Appreciate it. Let's see here. If you are new here, subscribe to Matt. He's extremely knowledgeable and insightful on many matters. Thank you, Jesse. I appreciate that. Venom was okay, but it's a bit uneven. I would agree. I would definitely agree. Let's see here. Matt is a great voice of reason because he's not going to tell you necessarily what you want to hear. He's going to tell you what is what based on business.
Yeah.
Alex, definitely. I'd never tell him what he wants to hear.
No, ever.
I keep hearing all these people say nice things about me, but then I go, oh, they're talking about this guy.
Yeah.
We got drunk.
We're like the Brady Bunch on here. We could be pointing at each other.
Hi, Alex. How you doing? Drunk 3PO's in the chat. Drunk, thank you so much for coming on. Happy birthday, belated birthday. Let's see here. Salty Nerd has time for Matthew's love stream, but not Drunk 3PO.
Oh God,
we got some jealousy. We got
I was working yesterday, Jay.
So, if Disney bought Sony's movie parts, wouldn't that be reason for breaking up Disney for market dominance? Sorry for my bad spelling. I'm from Sweden. Well, I mean, the first thing is whether or not Sony, the corporation, would want to sell off Sony Pictures, which owns the rights to Spider-Man, to Disney. So, if they're not willing to sell, Disney can't buy them. But more than that, if they do sell off to, let's say, a different company, or they're acquired by a different company, there's probably a clause in that license that it defaults back to Disney, because if the person who owns Sony isn't the person that they originally licensed the stuff to, there's probably a default to that. So, it's hard to say, but this isn't a simple scenario where Disney can just buy their way out of it. They have to come up with a way to work with Sony, unless the license kind of defaults. And once these movie studios have their licenses, they don't want to give them up. Disney literally had to buy Fox to get Fantastic Four and X-Men back. And Fantastic Four was pretty much a dead franchise at Fox, but they were still willing to try to do stuff with it just to hold on to it, because it was one of their only comic book properties there. And then we got Mladen Kulik. I enjoyed Venom, but didn't like the villain. He was just not menacing. Yeah, the villain in Venom was pretty bad. I'm looking forward to Carnage, though. I think Venom 2 might be better than the second one. But at the end of Venom, Alex, if you don't know, we got kind of a tease for the sequel.
In credit.
Yeah, I spoiled. I haven't seen it, but I spoiled it pretty much. I saw the parts that are important.
Yeah. So, kind of going along with the terrible news for Tom Holland, we've got some more stuff that is coming down the pipeline in regards to a movie he's involved with, and that is the adaptation of the video game Uncharted, where apparently it has lost another director. And I believe that this is the third director that this movie's lost for some reason. Yeah. This is from comingsoon.net. Headline: Director Dan Trachtenberg exit Uncharted movie from Sony's PlayStation Productions, and yet this is another Sony production. So this is an article by Kylie Hemmert, and it says that Deadline is reporting that Dan Trachtenberg, The Boys, 10 Cloverfield Lane, will no longer be directing Sony Pictures' film adaptation of the PlayStation game Uncharted. The studio is seeking out a new filmmaker by the end of summer. Tom Holland is still attached to star as the young Nathan Drake in the PlayStation Productions feature. Uncharted will be a prequel to the game series, taking its basis from the sequence in Uncharted 3, Drake's Deception, wherein the young thief first encounters his partner Victor Sullivan, and in essence sets up the events of the entire game franchise. Despite previous drafts by the likes of Mark Bowl, who wrote Hurt Locker and Zero Dark 30, two very good movies, Oscar nominee David O. Russell, who also writes pretty good movies, Doctor Strange's Thomas Dean Donnelly and Joshua Oppenheimer, Safe House's Greg Guggenheim and Joe Carnahan, this new version of the film will bring on a new writer to rework the newfound premise. So, as you can see, this movie has gone through like tons of creatives for some reason. Based on the action-adventure video game Uncharted Drake's Fortune from Naughty Dog and Sony Interactive, the story follows a descendant of explorer Sir Francis Drake, a treasure hunter named Nate Drake who believes he has learned the whereabouts of El Dorado, the fabled South American golden city, from a cursed golden statue. The search becomes competitive when a rival hunter joins the fray, and is escalated when creatures, actually mutated descendants of Spaniards and Nazis, begin attacking those hoping to learn the treasure's true secrets. Uncharted is an Arad Atlas Entertainment production, and for those of you who don't know, Avi Arad, who is producing this movie, he's also attached to all the Spider-Man films that Sony does. And Charles Groven, Avi Arad, Alex Gartner, and Avi Arad producing. I don't know why they have Avi Arad on here twice. Uncharted will serve as the first feature produced by PlayStation Productions. The film is expected to begin production early next year. We'll see if that goes, if they can't find a director. And the release date set for December 18, 2020. I don't see them making that if they can't find a script and a writer by this point. So basically, guys, it looks like PlayStation has started their own studio to adapt their exclusive games into movies. And Uncharted was going to be one of their flagship film, and it just looks like it's running into all types of problems. So first of all, what I want to know from you guys is, are you familiar with the Uncharted game? Are you looking forward to this movie? And why the hell do you think they're running into so many issues? Alex?
I have played all the games except for the most recent one for the PlayStation 4. I haven't played that one, but I played all of them on PlayStation 3. I really enjoyed the story. I really enjoyed the characters. I was looking forward to this franchise because they're getting Tom Holland, which is, he's a young, up-and-coming, very famous actor. I enjoy his acting. I think he's really good. And I think it was I understand some people were kind of upset because it wasn't like Nathan Drake, you know, the already realized adventurer Nathan Drake. They thought Tom Holland was too young. But if you look at it from a franchise perspective, they want somebody who's going to be able to do this for a long period of time and make multiple movies and grow into that role. So for them to do like an origin film about where he gets his teams up with his partner and goes on his first adventure, I'm all for it. I thought it was going to be great. I have no idea why they can't get this done. I mean, the story is spelled out for them already by the creators of the video game. All you got to do is go down and say, hey, can you email me the script that you guys wrote for your game? I don't know what's going on over there. I think the only thing is it's the curse of the video game movie that just hangs over every single one that has been tried to made in Hollywood. Video game movies almost always suck. I don't know why. I don't understand how it's so hard to adapt a script from an already realized story, but it's a real bummer. And I want them to do this movie and I want them to make it. But I guess if to try to look at it like a glass half full, if they're going to do it, I want them to do it right. So don't put something out there that's half-assed and kind of not done to its fullest potential. So take your time, find the right writer, find the right director, and do it the right way, and hopefully it's really good.
That kind of seems like the problem with Hollywood and video games movies, right? They always kind of do it just half-assed. And,
yeah.
Hollywood has a really hard time adapting video games.
Yeah.
Matt, you're a video gamer. Are you familiar with the
Well,
Uncharted?
I don't own a console, so no, I'm not super familiar with Uncharted. I play PC games, but just judging, reading the article, it sounds like this is kind of like, was it like in the vein of a Lara Croft Tomb Raider kind of movie? Is that the kind of how the game is?
It's kind of like you're basically playing Indiana Jones,
Okay.
and it's a platformer, so there's a lot of like kind of climbing and jumping and puzzle solving, and then it's interspersed with these quick time events and action set pieces.
Yeah,
so Nathan Drake
sounds like it's made for making a fun summer type waste your time popcorn movie, right? So
Nathan Drake actually murders a ton of people in these games. He is a big killer. But there's an Uncharted fan film on YouTube, starring Nathan Fillion as Nathan Drake, and that was really the fan favorite for who people wanted to play Nathan Drake in the movie.
He's perfect. Yeah,
he really is. But what's interesting is that Tom Holland seems to be kind of cursed lately, because I mean, not only did this movie kind of lose its director and it needs like a complete rewrite of the script after so many people have tried it, but his current movie that I guess has been going on for a while now, it's called Chaos Walking. He's actually in it with Daisy Ridley, Ray from Star Wars. Yeah, and it's a Lionsgate film being directed by Doug Liman. If you don't know who Doug Liman is, he's the guy who directed the movie Swingers back with Jon Favreau, but he also he's gone on to direct big things like what's it, Live, Die, Repeat. I keep getting it confused with it's the Tom Cruise movie. That's basically Groundhog Day with aliens. What else did he do? Mr. and Mrs. Smith with Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt as the married spies. And apparently Chaos Walking, this new movie of Tom Holland's, has gone so far over budget and is so expensive that if it doesn't do well at the theaters, it could very well sink Lionsgate. So there's a lot of kind of nervousness about this movie in Hollywood. So between the Spider-Man stuff, Chaos Walking, and Uncharted, Tom Holland is kind of at the center of these big kind of cinematic disasters, unfortunately. So it's kind of interesting, but the only thing that I can think of that would cause these directors and all these problems with the production on something like Uncharted is that the PlayStation Productions is relatively new, and whoever's running that stuff keeps butting heads with the creatives. Like the creatives want to do something, or they want more money, or they want to make changes, and the studio's just like, no. And then the people are like, well, I can't do my vision, so I'm just going to go off and work on something that's less problematic. So my guess is that because this is a brand new production company and this is its first movie, that might be just like the kind of growing pains problems that we have here going on. Mladen Kulik, sorry if I butchered your name. I don't care for Uncharted movie. I'm more interested in Chaos Walking getting a release date. And as I said, we're actually in the middle of deep reshoots because the movie was just like...
I heard it was so bad that they almost canceled it altogether.
Yeah,
like they were like, don't...
They've already sunk something like $200 million into it. So like they need to... Like they're trying desperately to salvage it. But this could be... Like if it's not a hit, this could be Doug Liman's career ender, type thing. I played only the first game and some parts of the second one. I've played a couple of the games. They were fun. I didn't think they were anything special. Let's see here. Ethan Reeves over on Mixer. Which one's Ultra? That's me. I'm Ultra Matum. That's my game-in name. Let's see here. He also directed American Made and The Bourne Identity. Yes, he did. He directed the first Bourne Identity, the good one.
Yeah, the good one.
And American Made I thought was okay. But apparently Chaos Walking is a cluster F of a movie. So
Tom Holland needs to get a new agent.
Well, I mean, he needs to. He definitely needs to stop working with Sony. Disney seems to treat him pretty well. All right, so we talked about that. Now let's talk about 3 new Marvel series for Disney Plus, and this is pretty exciting. This was I feel like this was the biggest news to come out of Marvel at the D23 Expo. And basically, we have this article from The Hollywood Reporter. Headline, Marvel unveils 3 new Disney Plus shows, including She-Hulk and Moon Knight. And this is from Aaron Couch. Kevin Feige also revealed new details for a bunch of series we don't care about. A month after unveiling an ambitious Phase 4 slate at San Diego Comic-Con, Marvel Studios has confirmed 3 new series in the works for Disney Plus: She-Hulk, Moon Knight, and Ms. Marvel. Marvel head Kevin Feige dropped the news Friday at D23 in Anaheim during a panel touting the upcoming streaming service. He noted that Bruce Banner is no longer the only gamma-ray-powered hero around. She-Hulk, a.k.a. Jennifer Walters, an attorney and cousin to Bruce Banner, a blood transfusion from whom is responsible for her powers, first appeared in 1980's The Savage She-Hulk #1, and was the first major Marvel character co-created by the late Stan Lee. When her original series ended after 2 years, she became a member of both the Avengers and the Fantastic Four, as the character developed more of a distinct personality from her male counterpart, gaining a stronger sense of humor and intelligence and deciding that she preferred being super strong and green permanently, or at least as much as possible. Unlike the male Hulk, She-Hulk traditionally maintains her smarts and personality when hulked out. Moon Knight, who showed up as a good guy in 1975's Werewolf by Night #32, is the vigilante alter ego of mercenary Mark Spector. But it's actually more complicated than that. Spector also has a couple of other alter egos, millionaire Stephen Grant and cab driver Jake Lockley, that may or may not be separate alternate personalities. And the same may be true of Khonshu, the Egyptian deity who is either guiding Spector through his costume adventures or a figment of his imagination. In recent years, other persona has emerged, Mr. Knight, a police consultant who dresses in all white and wears a mask while solving unusual crimes. Ahead of the panel, Hollywood Reporter broke the news Friday that Ms. Marvel is in development with British scribe Bisha K. Ali to write and act as showrunner. In addition to these new additions to Marvel's upcoming slate, Feige pulled back the curtain on previously announced series. I don't really care about these. We're just going to talk about these 3 new ones. So guys, Mr. Vader, what do you think of a She-Hulk series? How do you think they're going to handle that?
How do I think they're going to handle it? I think it's just another, B or C grade character that they got to put in, make some content for Google Plus to make some content.
You mean Disney Plus?
Or Disney Plus, yeah. I'm all over the place today.
Disney Plus is out.
It's all the same.
Well, Google got canceled.
I don't have a huge lot of interest in a She-Hulk show. If they never made it, I would never miss it or want it. And but it could be interesting. It depends on who they cast in the role and who writes it, I guess. More power to it.
Do you think they're going to keep her, green and hulked out the entire time, like she is in the comics?
That's a good question. I mean, if it's true to her character in the comic books, then they might lean more towards that. Hopefully they cast somebody who looks the part, who's a bigger, stronger, maybe an MMA fighter type person who can carry that persona and also act. That's going to be hard to find. I don't know
who they cast in the role.
I honestly, I don't know if they're going to try and use this as some kind of a platform to address like the LGBT community with trans rights stuff. If she's going to be this hulking massive woman, they might try and play into that card a little bit to try and play into the diversity aspect.
That's where they got to be careful there, because in the comic book, she's pretty hot and green. I mean, I don't know any other ways to say it. They don't want some woman that they're going to mistake for a man playing the role. It just won't work.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I'm just wondering. I'm going to put that out there. I'm wondering if that's the way they're going to go, whether they do or not. Like Matt said, I don't have any connection with this character, so it's not going to bother me either way. But I know it'll be talked about quite a bit if they do lean in that direction.
What about the girl from Warcraft? Think she could pull it off? Paula Patton.
I don't know. Is she like? I don't remember that movie very much. She was pretty slender, wasn't she? She was kind of a small person.
Oh, she's big.
Is she?
Big.
Okay. Yeah, maybe. I mean, if whatever they do, if they're gonna have the budget for the CGI, I'm sure they could work that out too. They could just kind of CGI a little bit.
That's the thing I'm wondering is it's like I don't think they can afford to just CGI their main character for however many episodes. They got to have like girl in suit or girl in green skin paint.
I'll be honest. When I think of green girls, I think of Gamora or Orion girls from Star Trek.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's got to be a paint job. I don't see how they could afford to do like a completely CGI character in every episode of that. But I actually think that they might go the legal thriller route, where it's basically like Ally McBeal, Marvel.
Where they from Futurama, it was like single female lawyer.
Yeah, exactly, single female lawyer. She's going to be basically an attorney taking on cases, and as she's investigating her cases, she hulks out to fight the bad guys. But all the drama's in the courtroom.
This is such a weird show.
Now, the one show here that I'm really excited about is Moon Knight. I've been wanting to see a Moon Knight TV show ever since they announced the Netflix series. But the interesting thing here is that these 3 announced series are being produced by Marvel Studios, whereas the Netflix series and a lot of the stuff that's going to be on Hulu, like the Ghost Rider series and stuff like that, is being produced by Marvel TV, which is a separate division that is run directly by Marvel Comics. So they're 2 separate things, and these are characters that can actually cross over into the movies, whereas the Marvel TV characters can't necessarily do that, which I think is kind of interesting. But what do you guys think about potential Moon Knight TV show, Matt?
Again, I am not familiar with the character. I remember you saying something about how he would probably be a better fit with the Marvel horror universe or whatever. What are they calling that with the
Journey to Terror? The
Journey to Terror stuff that they're doing. But it's hard for me to comment on it because I just don't know enough about the character to say anything. But I'll see if Alex has anything else to say.
Not a ton, but I know that there's a lot of buzz going around with this character, which is really cool. It's really cool to see kind of a low-key character that not many people are familiar with get a chance in the spotlight. And Matt, like, you're super excited about this, so that's kind of cool. Hearing you be excited about something usually means that there's potential. So
Sure.
I think it could be really cool. I was really hoping that it was going to be Kit Harington, but that got announced. He's a different character. So who do you think they're going to put in that role? Who do you think would be a good fit, I guess?
Honestly, I'd kind of like to see Jason Isaacs in there. Older guy, but I feel like he's got the chops for it. He did this series called Awake. I don't know if you guys ever watched that before, but it was basically this really cool TV show where Jason Isaacs played this cop who existed across multiple realities. Like every time he'd go to sleep, he'd wake up in a different reality where it was a different version of himself and a different version of his life. And you couldn't tell if he was actually living through multiple dimensions or if he was just crazy. And I think that's kind of like a good way to go with the Moon Knight stuff, because the cool thing about Moon Knight, basically he has multiple personality disorder. And the whole thing is like, does he have powers granted to him by an Egyptian god, or is he just insane? Is he just a guy running around in an outfit fighting crime? And so like, that's kind of the interesting thing about Moon Knight is you don't know kind of like where he stands on this. But I actually think, so here's my theory. You guys tell me if I'm off base here or not. So Fox was bought out by Disney. Disney now owns Fox, right? And under that is FX and the X-Men and stuff like that. Now, FX was doing this X-Men series called Legion. I don't know if you ever watched Legion. It's a pretty awesome series. It's very mind-bending. But it was run by this guy named Noah Hawley, who also did the Fargo series for FX. And Legion is wrapping up. This was their final season. They were 3 and done. But now that Disney owns them, I think it would be brilliant if they took Noah Hawley, who is great at these, like, what's real, what's not type things, and made him the showrunner for Moon Knight. I think he would be excellent at it. What do you guys think about that?
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, same. I was going to say the same thing. I'll take your word for it, man. That sounds cool.
You guys need to watch more TV.
We do.
Yeah,
Right.
we do.
Okay, so the final one that I want to touch on here, Ms. Marvel. I think that this was basically, you could see this coming a mile away the minute they announced their Phase 4 slate, because they're all about diversity, and Ms. Marvel ticks all the boxes. She's female, she's Muslim, she's a teen. I feel like this is going to be like Jane the Virgin, the Marvel edition. If you ever watched Jane the Virgin.
Yeah, I've seen a couple.
But recently, there was some controversy about who they tapped to showrun this series. And it said in the article that British scribe Bisha K. Ali is going to act as the showrunner. And when this was announced, one of our associates on Twitter, Data Racer, found that she had deleted thousands of tweets from her Twitter account after she was announced as the showrunner for this, all of which were attacking white males.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone is saying that Ms. Marvel, in case it wasn't obvious from the get-go, is going to be super woke and super SJW and super anti-male. What do you guys think about this? Do you think that's going to be true, or do you think that Marvel is going to kind of rein her in?
Well, I think they're going to have to rein it in a little bit, but I think the show's already got too much controversy around it from the get-go. I mean, it's part of that whole SJW Marvel thing that they've been doing for the last few years that's caused chaos in the comic book industry. Nobody buys comics anymore because they're all full of these stupid woke agendas. And Miss Marvel and Squirrel Girl and other titles like that are the root of it, and I have zero interest in watching this show. And when a creator and writer of a show has to go into their Twitter feed and delete 5,000 posts because she's a crazy SJW white man hater, that's a problem from the get-go. No interest.
So, Alex, what interests me is that the audience for comic books and comic book movies and comic book TV shows are like white men. It's just part of the demographic that these things have traditionally appealed to. Leaving all politics aside, don't you think it's kind of odd that these industries seem to have such disdain for their basically their user base that they just want to stop catering to them?
Yeah, it is definitely weird. And I saw Data Racer's post, and I thought it was very telling. And it was actually like, oof, that's not a good look. For her to have to delete all those posts. And I looked at some of the comments that she was replying to, or that were replying to her deleted posts, and they were all pretty bad, in my opinion. Coming from a white guy who I think I'm a pretty chill person, I don't really think I'm that bad, but it's definitely not a good tell. But I will say this: I'm not going to dwell on it, and I'm not going to. I would tell other YouTubers and stuff. I mean, they're going to do what they want to do, but I would say you don't have to dive into this and criticize it at every turn. You get enough rope, and it's going to hang itself. If it's not a good show, if it's going to have that super far political agenda to it, where it's really catering to a very specific type of person, like we've seen before with the comic book industry, when you do that. When you're not appealing to the broader audience and you have a very, very pointed demographic that you want to get, you're not going to get a lot of money out of that. So even if they do produce the show and they make 1 or 2 seasons, I don't see it going very far if they lean really hard into this political aspect of it. So I say just let it hang itself. If it's going to hang itself, then fine. If it actually ends up being good, cool.
I'm going to reserve judgment until I see it. I think that Ms. Marvel is going to be geared specifically towards women as a female audience. Like I said, I can see it as Jane the Virgin, the Marvel edition, where it's basically like a soap opera. It's a CW show geared towards young adults, young women. It's going to talk about relationships. It's going to be kind of more lighthearted. And so I think that a lot of the controversy around the showrunner might die down if she just focuses on, typical teen stuff as opposed to trying to put in any subversive messages or propaganda or what have you.
Yeah. And just to compare, the same type of thing happened with the Witcher series. I believe the writers of that, they had a similar. Their Twitter feed was full of that same type of a rhetoric and personality, or whatever you want to say. And that seems to have died down. People are saying that the show is really accurate to the books, and they're looking forward to it now. So hopefully the same thing happens with this. Hopefully that she just kind of, puts her personal opinions to the side and just focuses on writing a good show and making good entertainment. And if she does that, I'll support it. If not, then I won't watch it.
Yeah, just make a well-written, good story that's entertaining, and stop pissing off half your audience.
Yep.
It's not hard.
You guys are so rational. You're making me come off as the goatee stroking evil mad guy down here.
I think I think the big deal here is that at least Alex and I we're willing to give stuff a shot.
No, not me. I don't even want to watch it.
There are lots of people out there like they get the dog whistles and they're like, oh, we're not watching this. But I'll be like, well, I'll give it a try and I'll see. And sometimes I'm surprised, other times I'm not. But I always give stuff a chance, at least. Midnight's Edge After Dark says, are you kidding? He signed up with Sony for the next 10 years in regards to Tom Holland. Yeah, I mean, probably. But, doesn't mean it's a good call. But, I like Tom Holland. I want to see him succeed. The movies that he's been doing with Sony have been pretty good so far. So, I mean, he's only done the Spider-Man movies. So we'll see how that goes. Thomas Berg says, if it plays out in court and she flips out and starts smashing stuff when she loses, I'll watch that.
Sure.
Yeah, like every time, like juries are afraid to rule against her because they're like,
She-Hulk smash. I don't remember if She-Hulk, when they first made her character, was she like the original Hulk where you like talked in single syllable words and smashed things all the time?
I think that she was always kind of in control. Like it was basically she was the same character but just bigger and green.
Yeah.
But one of the interesting things is like at the height of her popularity, she was drawn very sexually. It was very much for the male gaze, And in recent years, they've kind of toned that down a bit. They've made her more bulky and
recently they've made her like big and dumb and Hulk smash things.
Oh, really?
So yeah.
Well, I know that there was a John Byrne, I believe, run on the character that apparently kind of defined her, and that's the thing everyone's a fan of. But I really do think that Marvel's going to bring in David E. Kelly to write and produce this thing, and have it just be Ally McBeal with superhero powers. Moon Knight is Marvel's psychotic version of Batman. I think that's a pretty good description of that.
I like it.
Yeah. Mladen Kulik agrees with me. They should hire Noah Hawley to be the showrunner for the Moon Knight series. Thomas Burke says, I think Ms. Marvel is for the new generation of youngsters. I would agree with that. That's the difference between Supergirl and the Orville. One gives you something to think about. The other tells you how to think. That's a very good point, sure. Mike Latchman. There's a difference between being preached to and propaganda and having actual think pieces that tell both sides and let the audience decide for themselves what's right and what's wrong.
I've been trying to learn on Twitter, if I have an opinion about something, I usually pose a question at the end just to get a dialogue going so it doesn't sound like I'm telling somebody what to do or what to think. I'm like, what do you guys think about this? Like, I gotta be better about that because people get pissed off at me.
Not me. I tell everyone what to think.
Yeah,
I say, think like I do.
No, you're wrong. This movie's gonna suck.
Yes, I tell that to you all the time, Alex.
I know. I'm used to it. It's okay.
All right. Moving on, we have news on the Flash movie. Yes, we're going from Marvel to DC, and in another article by Screen Rant by Cooper Hood, headline: Ezra Miller says the Flash is absolutely confirmed. Now, for those of you who haven't been following the DCEU, there's been a lot of speculation that the Flash movie has been canceled. It's gone through 2 or 3 directors by this point who were initially attached to the project and ended up dropping out. Originally, it was going to be a Flashpoint story that tied in with Batman versus Superman and that vision that Ben Affleck had. Then it wasn't. Now nobody knows what the heck's going on. But Ezra Miller, the actor who plays the Flash in the DCEU, has come out publicly to talk about it. Ezra Miller says the Flash solo movie is absolutely confirmed, as is his involvement. When Miller joined the unofficially titled DC Extended Universe several years ago as Barry Allen, aka The Flash, it wasn't going to be too long before he starred in a solo movie of his own. He had a quick cameo in Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, but was truly introduced in Justice League. As part of Warner Brothers and DC Films' original plan, The Flash was scheduled to be the first DC release after the Zack Snyder team-up. Well, boy, that didn't happen, did it? Since that announcement was made, though, The Flash has cycled through several directors, with Seth Grahame-Smith, Rick Famuyiwa, I don't know what's that name, and most recently Jonathan Goldstein and John Francis Daly, all at one point attached. The latest exit came after the directors clashed with Miller's vision for the character, and he wrote his own script. Warner Brothers elected not to use his script, though, with Christina Hodson, Birds of Prey, hired to write the movie, and Andy Massachetti at Chapter 2 set to direct. But after seeing the past creative teams eventually leave, the Flash fans have been trying to not get their hopes too high about the current status of the film. In a recent interview with W. Korea, Miller was asked what's next for his career. Since he has many different projects in the works, he decided to only mention the ones that were absolutely confirmed. After first naming Fantastic Beasts 3, Miller put The Flash in the same category, confirming that the movie is indeed on its way and that he's still attached to star. Since the studios decided to go in a new direction with the Flash's creative team, it's hardly surprising that the movie is coming. The good news for Miller and his fans, though, is that this appears to be confirmation from him that he'll play Barry Allen again. Miller's contract hold reportedly expired earlier this year, along with Ray Fisher's, so it would appear that a new agreement was found with Miller as one of the stars of WB's Fantastic Beasts franchise. They have a vested interest in his career already. Miller's comments may also give fans insight into the current plan for the Flash's schedule. He mentions the movie after Fantastic Beasts 3, which could indicate that the Flash will be what he films after. With the Harry Potter prequel starting production in the spring of 2020, it's possible that WB and DC could be planning for the Flash solo film to start filming later that year or in early 2021. Either way, Muschietti will have plenty of time to develop the movie and even take a break if he wants before cameras need to roll. This could put The Flash on target for a 2022 release, which may be 4 years later than the original plan, but fans will be just as happy to actually see it hit theaters after all this time. Now, guys, I think one of the biggest issues with The Flash has always been that we have the TV show, and it's a totally different actor and a totally different scenario for the movies, and fans are like, well, why do we need two Flashes? But what do you think of this news? Do you think that DC is continuing to screw the pooch with this? Do you think they should just nix the Flash and go with someone else? Alex, what are your thoughts?
I'm just going to say real quick because I have to get going in a minute. I'm not interested in this at all. Ezra Miller is a bit of a weirdo. The interview that he was talking about the Flash in, I was watching it and I was like, man, this guy's like 2 inches away from losing it. Like, he's so out there and so kind of kooky and weird, which, I mean, Hollywood actors are weird, so maybe that's not a big deal. But I wasn't really attached to his Flash character in any of the DC movies. He wasn't my favorite. So I wouldn't be opposed to them just rebooting and recasting the character. But I wonder, my personal opinion is I wonder if he's just not talking about something that was confirmed a while ago and maybe something's changed and he's just not up to date yet. I don't know. The project doesn't seem to be going anywhere. And like you said, it's 4 years after the original DCU, which is, I think, now fallen apart pretty much. So I don't buy it.
Well, there's definitely no crossovers going on. Anyway, Alex, you got to go. So why don't you tell everyone where they can find you?
You guys can find me on Twitter at Salty Nerd and also on Instagram, The Salty Nerd Podcast. I'd appreciate Instagram followers. I do a lot of content over there, movie news and whatnot. So hit me up and let's chat about movies. Thanks, guys, for having me. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for coming on, Alex. All right, Matt, what do you think of this news with the Flash?
I kind of concur with Alex. I have no interest in watching this movie. I think Ezra Miller is a bit of a freakadoo. And,
I like how he wrote his own script, and the studio was like, no.
Yeah, I had no idea he did that.
Yeah, I didn't either.
I think Hollywood likes to play games with writers and directors. I didn't know all that was going on.
Oh yeah, they have no respect for writers in Hollywood.
I watched The Flash on the TV Flash for a few seasons, and I slowly lost interest in that too. But I feel like he's way more of a Flash that I can relate to than Ezra Miller's Flash on these DC movies that they've made. I don't like that iteration of the character. It seems weird. I don't like the uniform. I don't like the way they make him look when he runs. There's just not a lot about the DCU Flash that I like. And maybe they can make a good movie, make it a fun movie, because they could do it with Wonder Woman and Aquaman. But I think they've waited too long. I don't think a lot of people really care. So
it's possible, but now that J.J. Abrams is kind of coming into Warner Brothers, and there's rumors that he is going to be the kind of Kevin Feige figure for the DC comics properties, there's a possibility that he could be the one who kind of comes in and cleans up this mess with the Flash, gets it on track, and gets it out there. I think that it's a good idea because, the Flash is one of DC's better-known superheroes. I think it's a good idea that they're moving forward with this movie. It sounds like because of his association with Fantastic Beasts, Ezra Miller is firmly entrenched in Warner Brothers, so they probably renewed his contract, and he's probably going to go forward with it. So the question is just whether or not they can get their act together and put out a good superhero movie, which Warner Brothers has a checkered history of doing. But they've had a pretty good track record so far. I think Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and Shazam were all pretty good films.
Yeah, I enjoyed those.
Yeah. So Mike Latchman says reboot it all. I don't know about that. I'd kind of prefer that they just kind of finish what they started and stick with the DCEU as they started off with, and I'd like to see kind of them kind of go forward with that, but I guess they decided to abandon that. Thomas Berg says, do we really need a Flash movie? Not really.
Nope.
But we're probably going to get one anyway. It's like, did we need an Aquaman movie? Not really. But
not really.
Did we need a Shazam movie? No. But
we got Dolph Lundgren on a giant seahorse. What more do you want? It was awesome.
Yeah, we did. Dolph Lundgren should have been Aquaman. I would have watched that movie.
Yeah.
The number one TFM show to be sliced up into 20 good or smaller videos from Critical Equation. Referring to my live streams, I guess, where I basically just crib the information we go over and put it out on my channel in smaller, more digestible bites. I think WB will recast Ezra Miller for the Flash movie, just like Ben Affleck didn't return as Batman. I don't know. If they renewed his contract, there might have been stipulations that he's still attached to as the Flash. So I think we're stuck with Ezra Miller, as kooky as he is. But I don't know if that's a bad thing or not. I think he was kind of a decent enough Flash for the movies, but we'll see. I'm not like a huge fan of his, but who cares, right? All right, so we're going from the Flash movie to another video game movie, this time Resident Evil. Now, Resident Evil movies have been a staple of terrible cinema for over a decade now, with the Paul W.S. Anderson and what's her name, the girl from The Fifth Element?
Mila Jovovich.
Yeah, Mila Jovovich. And it sounds like they are now going to reboot these movies and hopefully make them good, but who knows. Another story from Screen Rant, and this is from Andrew Marshall, headline exclusive, new Resident Evil movie from 47 Meters Down director in development. Now, for those of you who haven't seen 47 Meters Down, it's a underwater shark horror movie that my girlfriend absolutely loved. So I guess this is good news, considering the quality of the people making the previous Resident Evil movies. A new Resident Evil movie is in development from Johan Roberts, the director of 47 Meters Down and its sequel, and The Strangers Pray at Night, the last installment of the zombie killing franchise. The definitively titled Resident Evil: The Final Chapter was released in January of 2017. Despite video game adaptations generally getting written off before they've even gotten anywhere, and with good cause, the Resident Evil saga managed to buck the trend. Although generally receiving mixed to negative reviews from critics, each installment was popular enough with audiences to turn enough of a profit that more were made, unfortunately. It wasn't until 15 years and 6 movies later when franchise navigator Paul W.S. Anderson decided to call it a day in favor of writing and directing an adaptation of RPG series Monster Hunter. Oh, dear God. I'm sorry, I'm not a Paul W.S. Anderson fan. I've never liked his stuff. He did one decent movie, which was Event Horizon. But other than that, I haven't liked anything this guy's done. The subject of the new Resident Evil movie came up when we asked Roberts directly about the director credit for the upcoming reboot at the top of his IMDb page and what he could tell us about the current stage of production. In addition to stating it would be a film rather than a series, he stated, "We are in active development of that at the moment. I pitched them a take and they really loved it. So we are just gearing up on that as we speak, really. I'm in the office all the time there. So yeah, it's great. It's going to be super scary. It's super scary. It's super, super scary. And it's just getting back to the roots of the game. I think at the moment, I'm not really allowed to say much more than that, but it's going to be a lot of fun. In many people's minds, Resident Evil will always be an action film franchise starring Mila Jovovich and featuring lunatic action and absurd plots that increase in intensity with each film. However, the property started out in a much more subdued fashion in 1996 as a survival horror game for the PlayStation, and one so successful it came to codify the subgenre. Its story saw Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine, both of whom were featured in the films, who were members of a police special ops team, STARS. Together, they investigate a series of gruesome murders in the mountains surrounding a Midwestern city and find themselves trapped in a zombie-infested mansion. The game's emphasis was on tactics and planning rather than wading into every fight with guns blazing, as ammunition was scarce and limited. There was also a puzzle-solving element that made you think as well as fight. Robert's description of getting back to the roots of the game would suggest that instead of being another hyperkinetic action movie, it will take inspiration from the initial game installment where everything was designed to scare you and make you feel tense. Such was the emotional shredding inflicted upon young 90s players by the game. Many of them refused to play it alone or at night. If Roberts can recreate and invoke that kind of primal fear in his Resident Evil, it would become a true horror and one that may surpass the overblown franchise in acclaim and popularity. Matt, did you ever watch any of the Resident Evil?
I believe I've watched them all, but the last one, I'll admit, I'm a sucker for bad movies like that. I really kind of enjoyed the first two, especially. They kind of like really got really bad after that, but I enjoy watching Mila Jovovich kill zombies and get a little crazy. It's all fun stuff for me. But I like a lot of bad movies. I like Underworld. I like Pacific Rim. Lots of other stuff.
Yeah, I don't know why we're friends.
They are what they are. It's like they're not like bad movies trying to be good movies. They're bad movies, and they know they're bad movies. And I think the filmmakers kind of embrace that. So and that makes it okay.
Well, my biggest problem was that they were nothing like the games.
No,
it's Resident Evil in name only. Like they pulled kind of characters and creatures from the games, but they never really tried to be like the games. They were, like it said in the article, Paul W.S. Anderson basically made them action movies, big action adventure movies with horror elements in them, but none of it was ever actually scary. It was just kind of like weird.
Yeah, I think I played the game briefly. It was a long time ago. I know I haven't ever played it since the first one came out, but I don't remember finishing it or anything like that. But
well, I like the idea that in a reboot, they're going to be getting back to the basics. They're going to try and make it scary. They're going to try and make it creepy. And the guy they got to direct it, he's an actual horror director as opposed to Paul W.S. Anderson, who is more of an action guy, I guess. So I'm hopeful for this. Like, the 47 Meters Down movie, I don't know if you ever saw those. They're pretty tense. They're very simple, very low budget. So if this guy can actually pull it off, I say.
Are those shark movies?
Yeah, they're shark movies.
Yeah. Okay. I think I've seen a few clips of those, but yeah.
And Mladen Kulik says, I enjoyed the first 3 Resident Evil movies.
Yeah, me too.
I didn't. I thought they were so dumb.
They were. You're right.
They were not in the enjoyable way for me, anyway. Sometimes dumb movies can be enjoyable, like Venom, but this one not so much. All right, so let's talk about another horror movie, and this is Scream. And apparently, Scream, like so many other things, is getting rebooted, right? So this comes from We Got This Covered by Christian Boone. Headline, Screen reboot reportedly moving forward. Update, there was a bit of confusion while speaking with our sources, and though a reboot is indeed in development, it's not happening at Blumhouse as we previously thought. Apologies for the confusion. So in this article, it was reported that Blumhouse was going to be rebooting Scream, but apparently that's not the case. Now, if you guys remember, the original Scream films were done under the Dimension banner of Miramax, and Miramax got bought out by Disney, and basically Disney just destroyed that studio, didn't do anything with it, shut it down basically, and then ended up selling off that library to some type of holding company for tax purposes. So a lot of the original Dimension films are kind of in limbo right now, but Scream apparently still is going strong. Following the success of rebooting Halloween, it's no surprise that Blumhouse is working on relaunching their classic horror franchises. Back in February, Jason Blum revealed that Scream and Hellraiser reboots are being considered, and if our info is correct, the studio now actively is moving forward with the former and resurrecting Wes Craven's Ghostface. Discussing film recently broke the news that Christopher Landon, who I guess wrote or directed Happy Death Day, is set to write and direct a new movie for Blumhouse that's about a killer terrorizing a small town. Though this premise sounded a lot like 1996's slasher mystery flick, which led some to theorize that it could be a Scream reboot, we've now learned that this isn't the case. We've Got This Covered has been informed by our sources, the same ones who revealed that a Swamp Thing movie is happening, which Bloody Disgusting later confirmed, and that both Kevin Hart and Ryan Reynolds would show up in Hobbs and Shaw, that Landon's aforementioned project is something completely unrelated, but that a Scream reboot is still happening. After a few years of the franchise lying dormant, understandably and rightfully so, following Craven's death, 2019's been a good year to be a Scream fan. Scream Resurrection, the 3rd season of the TV show we've been waiting 3 years for, finally arrived this summer, and now there's this potential reboot. Obviously, fans will be hoping it'll bring back some old favorites, but it's too early to say whether that's likely just yet. Neve Campbell has previously commented that she wouldn't rule out a return as Sidney Prescott, though, while David Arquette seems interested in coming back as Dewey. Of course he would. I mean, he's not doing anything worthwhile right now. After Scream 4 underperformed back in 2011, however, Blumhouse may be wise to start from scratch and disregard continuity, much like the TV series did. Matt, did you ever watch the Scream movies?
I watched the first movie years ago at an old drive-in movie theater that has since closed down. But
were you a fan of them?
I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. But I've only watched the first one, and that was so long ago. I don't remember a heck of a lot about it. So,
I take it you haven't seen the MTV TV series.
I didn't. I wasn't even aware it existed, to be honest with you.
That's probably a good thing because it was awful. It was like when me and my girlfriend's a big horror movie fan. She loves everything to do with scary stuff. Mm-hmm. And when we found out that it was coming on MTV, she got very excited. And so we sat down, we tried watching the first season. We couldn't get past 4 episodes. Yeah. It was so bad. And they brought it back for a second season. Now I think they brought it back for a third, but that was after a long hiatus. There were some production problems with it.
Was this for a movie or a TV show?
This was for a TV show.
This was for a streaming service?
No, this was for MTV.
MTV,
basically.
Okay. All right.
So, there was talk in this article that they said wasn't true at the beginning, which is that Blumhouse was developing this. And Blumhouse is known for making all these low-budget horror movies like Saw and stuff like that. What is it? The Purge. But Blumhouse's deal is with Universal, and I think that the Scream rights are resting with Paramount right now, which is where some of the confusion came in. But Scream, for at least 3 movies was like a big franchise, big horror franchise. They were able to make them cheap, and they were able to make a lot of money. And I still remember my first experience seeing the original Scream in a theater. And it was one of the most visceral experiences ever, because not only was it scary, but there was also this really intriguing mystery, like who's the killer? And in a packed theater at night, when everyone's like screaming and jumping out of their seats and getting really into the movie, it was probably one of the best movie going experiences I ever had in a theater. And this is like back, I want to say like my senior year of high school, I think, depending on when it came out. But I just remember sitting in that theater and getting really into the movie and feeling the energy of the crowd. And there's nothing like a good crowd for like a scary movie,
for sure.
Where everyone's reacting to it. And so I've been like a big fan of Scream. I've never seen the 4th one because I thought the 3rd one was so stupid. I just didn't care. The 2nd Scream is decent, but nothing beats that 1st one. I think the thing that made Scream so special wasn't just the fact that it was a good horror movie, but that it was such an intriguing mystery. Like, J.J. Abrams likes to talk about the mystery box and how that pulls people into a story, which is true. When you give people a good, kind of mystery to solve, they want to find out the answer. The problem with J.J.'s theory is that he never gives you the answer. He's content to just let you keep thinking, like, what's going on here.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about the original Scream was like you kept trying to guess. And the guy who wrote that, Kevin Williamson, was very knowledgeable of how people were going to be perceiving things. And so he kept throwing in these twists that kept you like being surprised. And by the end of that movie, you're just like, whoa, that was pretty good. And so I don't know how they're going to reboot Scream. Like if they do it more as like a straight up horror film. I think that the thing that made Scream special was always the whodunit aspect, the mystery aspect. And if they leave that out, I don't see it being really worth watching, I guess. And I also don't want to see any of the old cast return.
No Courtney Cox, no.
no Courtney Cox, no David Arquette, no Nev Campbell. I want new people.
Drew Barrymore, right? They could do a prequel.
Well, Drew Barrymore's dead in the Scream, so I think they're all dead at a certain point. I don't. Like I said, I didn't see the 4th one, so I don't know who ended up getting killed off here. Let's see here. We got some other people coming in. I enjoyed the first Resident Evil movies. I think we already talked about that. Paul W.S. Anderson directed some good movies like Death Race 2008 and Event Horizon 1997. I wouldn't call those good movies. I'd say that they were okay. Like Death Race was kind of fun, but it was stupid. And Event Horizon.
I'm pretty sure I haven't made it through either one of those. I've started them, but I haven't finished. So
you've never seen Event Horizon?
I've started it. I don't know. I'm a bad movie watcher.
It's just okay. Like I wouldn't say Event Horizon was good. At the time it looked very slick, but the story wise it was kind of boring. I thought for the most part. JB Vanderhorst says, I liked the first 20 minutes of Resident Evil 1, then they abandoned the survival horror in favor of alien-esque action and PG-13 lack of blood. That's very true. They tried to tone it down to a PG-13, and it kind of lost all of its luster. Thomas Berg says, Scream no, Hellraiser yes. I have never been a fan of the Hellraiser movies. And that's just because Pinhead freaks me the frack out.
They were pretty freaky. I'll admit. I grew up in like a super religious household, and those movies freaked me out when I was younger. And just for that, they twisted my brain up a little bit with the Cenobites and stuff. And I'd like to go back and watch them all again.
Like the Cenobites, like I don't like kind of like self-mutilation type stuff. And so the Cenobites just always turned me off from ever getting into Hellraiser.
I think I got completely turned off with the when they had the Cenobite with the CDs sticking out of them everywhere. And I'm like, oh, that's really stupid. He like take them out and like throw them at people or something, right? Is that right?
I don't know. I've never seen these. Like I said, I've stayed away from all the Hellraiser movies just because I get freaked out by that stuff. Like I don't like it.
Horror movies aren't really my bag either. Especially, I mean, I guess the old Jason and Freddy movies were fine. Those are what I grew up watching. But when they got to the Saw and the torture porn movies and stuff like that, those weren't my bag. So
yeah, the torture porn stuff was definitely something that turned me off. Mladen Kulik says, I grew up with Scream movies. I like Scream 1 and 2 and 4. Not a fan of the third one. I agree. The third one was probably the weakest. I haven't seen 4.
Midnight's Edge is calling us wusses. And,
yeah. The judge just said, you guys are wusses. I don't like horror movies. I'm sorry. Like, I have to be dragged to horror movies, honestly. If it weren't for my girlfriend, I would never watch a horror movie. Tom, if you're in the chat, if you want to jump in, let me know. I'll send you a link. We've got a couple more topics to cover here. If you want,
please come in, Tom.
Mr. Vader here doesn't like being the only one that.
I absolutely do not.
So in the chat, if you want to join, just let me know. I'll shoot you over a link to come on in. If not, that's cool. Matt can carry the show for us.
I'll listen to you talk. That's for sure.
Yeah, but if you want to come in now, because I would like to get your opinion on our next story, which is something that has absolutely blown me away. He says he has some wonky net, but he can try. Okay, well, I'm going to send you the invite anyway, and if you want to give it a shot, I mean, you can't be any worse than Alex. Alex was giving us so many freaking technical problems today.
20 minutes late and he had to leave early. How's that?
Yeah. And we scheduled it earlier just for him too. So it was like, thanks, Alex. All right. So I sent that to you on Twitter if you want to hop in here. But we've got a story coming up that I'm really excited about, and it has to do with Breaking Bad. Matt, are you a Breaking Bad fan?
I've only watched the first season. I liked it. I thought it was great. But it's one of those things where I honestly just haven't found the time to put it together to watch the rest of the show. It's definitely on my list of things I want to see, though.
Hello?
Hey, Tom.
Yeah, I'm on my phone internet, so hopefully it doesn't cut out too bad on you guys.
So we hear you okay, but you're just a gray screen.
Yeah, I don't know how to change my picture here.
The gray blob.
Fine.
Let's see here.
Be the gray Jedi. So we've got news that a secret Breaking Bad movie has been shot and produced and ready to go to be released on Netflix, of all places. Now, for those of you who remember, AMC was the home of Breaking Bad. And so seeing the movie on Netflix is kind of surprising to me, but we've got a trailer here for the actual film that I'm going to play for y'all. Hopefully you can hear it.
I don't know what to tell you. I ain't said like 500 times already. I have no idea where he is. Don't know where he's headed either. North, south, west, east, Mexico, the moon. I don't have a clue. But yo, even if I did, I wouldn't tell you. Because I've been watching the news, same as everybody else. I seen that little cage of his they kept him in. I heard about what all they did to him to make sure he kept cooking. So sorry. I don't know what to tell you. No way I'm helping you people put Jesse Pinkman back inside a cage.
So the film is called El Camino, and it's coming out in October, which is only like a couple months away.
And El Camino is a car like a truck.
Correct.
Yes. Now, for those of you who watched the finale of Breaking Bad, you'll know that Jesse drove away in an El Camino. And so this movie apparently happens after the events of Breaking Bad. Now, Breaking Bad is one of my all-time favorite TV shows. It's up there with The Wire in terms of how much I love this TV show. It one of the best written, one of the best directed, one of the best acted, complete stories. Like if you watch it from beginning to end, it really never drops the ball. There are a couple of slow episodes, but for the most part, it's a tour de force. It's one of the best crime dramas I think I've ever seen. And I can't recommend it enough. And when it ended with a couple open questions. And basically, Jesse Pinkman, the kind of younger character who was Walter White's assistant. He had been kidnapped and he was being forced to cook meth for these like white supremacist bad guys. And Walter White goes to try to save him, and Jesse ends up getting away, and he drives away in this El Camino. And this trailer kind of intimates that we're going to find out what happened afterwards. And there's another article here that I'm going to go over with you guys real quick. This is from Uprocks by Ryan Nagelhout. Headline: Aaron Paul says El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie, was done filming before many even knew it existed. And they did this on the secret. Like, nobody knew that this was coming out until they announced it, pretty much. And it says, a Breaking Bad movie starring Aaron Paul is really coming to Netflix this fall. And it's a lot sooner than many thought. Fans of the AMC series may have been clamoring for more Breaking Bad content since the show wrapped up nearly 6 years ago. And for years, Better Call Saul has sated the thirst of many. Not me. I think Better Call Saul has been pretty bad, honestly. But that's just my opinion. But a movie, well, that's a different story. We started hearing rumors about the film late last year when a New Mexico newspaper caught wind of a mysteriously named movie shooting in the desert, a location well known to Breaking Bad fans. But in an interview with the New York Times, Aaron Paul, who will star in that movie, El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie, says that the film was in the can well before anyone cracked the code that something big was going down. Paul told Dave Isikoff in an interview that was published on Saturday that El Camino was done months before anyone, not even Bob Odenkirk, had previously suggested. And Bob Odenkirk, of course, plays the character of Saul Goodman, and he's the lead actor in Better Call Saul. The movie had already happened and was in the can, Paul said, mentioning the Albuquerque Journal reporting about a movie codenamed Greenbrier last year. It was done. This is significant because only recently did people realize the movie was even finished. The announcement that the movie would drop in October was already a considerable surprise, but Paul's claim that the entire movie was made in secret with no one realizing it even existed until the filming had wrapped. And how did Paul avoid attracting attention despite hanging around his old digs? Well, he simply said he was working on an indie in New Mexico. If anyone asked him what he was up to during the time, Paul explained, I just said I was doing a small indie out in New Mexico, and that was it. No one second guessed it. He added, I definitely had people asking, are you going to do Better Call Saul? And I go, hey, man, I wish I was, but they're on hiatus right now. So, guys, how do you make a movie in secret? How does that happen? Tom, do you have any thoughts on this?
Well, usually it's not that, I wouldn't say it's necessarily difficult to make a movie in secret, but when it comes to like properties like this that are so popular, it is kind of surprising. But he did say he also kind of got caught, and it does sound like some people were putting two and two together there a little bit. To go back to your initial thing about the AMC deal, this is probably a deal made because I'm sure if Breaking Bad was on Netflix, it was probably a huge, draw on Netflix. So I'm sure Netflix said, hey, how would you like to make a movie for us? And gave him a buttload of money. That's probably what happened. And this is kind of, and this is not the first time that Netflix has kind of pulled something like this. Remember the whole deal on the Super Bowl for JJ's movie?
Cloverfield 3.
Yeah. So this is like the second time now they've kind of like dropped a movie without anybody knowing it was coming. The Dolomite movie kind of almost came out of nowhere too. I mean, I knew about it, but I didn't know like it was done already. That was the thing. It's like I just started hearing about it and all of a sudden, oh, bam, we got a trailer. So I think Netflix has been really good at being able to keep the wraps on a lot of their productions, it seems like, especially if they're the ones who are heading this up. Otherwise, they're just funding these things and people are just doing a really good job at keeping, tight lips. And that's not a bad thing because usually if there's tight lips on a production, that means everybody's happy and they don't want word to get out. They don't want surprises to get out. That's usually a good sign.
I think this is a good move for Netflix because you have lots of very devout Breaking Bad fans out there who would sign up just to see this movie probably,
right.
Sure.
If I didn't belong to Netflix, I'd be like, yeah, I want to, I'll pay like for a month to see this movie.
Well, it's kind of like the Deadwood movie. I mean, somebody was nice enough to give me a month of HBO to watch it. And it was like, I would have probably done that anyway if they hadn't, just so I could watch that movie. So I could see this being the same way. I've unfortunately not had a chance to sit down and watch Breaking Bad. I've had so many people tell me about it. It's just one of those shows I haven't had a chance to watch. And I was like, oh, I'm going to wait till it's done. And then when it got done, I just never got around to it.
It comes with my highest recommendation.
Yeah, everybody recommend. I have not heard one bad thing about the show, really, outside of the one episode that Ryan Johnson filmed. Everybody says that's probably the worst one.
Yeah, he actually filmed 2 episodes, and The Fly.
The Fly one, yeah.
A lot of people praise that one. I was like, that was one of the most boring episodes of the series. So I don't know.
Are there?
I think there are 5 seasons. The first season's really short. It's only 6 episodes.
Oh,
then,
I watched the first 2 seasons in. So
it's possible. It's possible. Yeah. But I would recommend you check it out. Matt, what do you think of the secret Breaking Bad movie?
In this day and age, I'm impressed that nobody knew about it with the way social media and everything works. I mean, there's no secrets really these days, unless, with the risk of getting your hand chopped off or something at the studio, like these people are. But I'm super impressed. Nobody didn't know anything about this. So
I'm actually Aaron Paul, like after he finished Breaking Bad, his star was kind of on the rise because of his association with this great TV show, and he kind of tried to break out into feature films with Need for Speed. He was the lead actor in that video game adaptation, and that didn't do too well, and so he's kind of gone back to TV, and he's going to be, I guess, one of the headliners in the new season of Westworld coming up on HBO. And that didn't get a whole lot of attention. That was something else that was kind of like on the down low. And now he's kind of returning to Breaking Bad. So it's kind of interesting to see him see the trajectory of his career post Breaking Bad. And we haven't seen much from Bryan Cranston either, but he was so good in that show that everyone wants him for his stuff, and so he's been kind of picky about what he's been doing. And I'm actually wondering if he's going to be involved in the movie in any way, shape, or form, considering how we left his character in the series. So all that stuff's still up in the air. But definitely try and watch these and then watch the movie, because I think that there's a potential here for like a whole Breaking Bad universe, because you got Better Call Saul. And you have all types of this criminal underground that the series has established, and it's just so ripe for other series and other movies. I think it could potentially be its own little cinematic universe almost.
Cool.
Yeah. So Thomas Berg says you're in for a treat if you haven't seen it yet. You're going to see it. So Thomas knows what's up. I would highly recommend that you guys check that out. But I'm pretty impressed with Netflix's ability to just kind of stay on the down low and then drop these things on us. They're going to need that going forward, with the streaming wars, I think. Okay, so now we're going to turn to one of the strangest stories that we have in today's lineup, which is that the toy company Hasbro appears to have bought Death Row Records. Now, if you were a child of the 90s, you'll know that all the best rap artists were signed with Death Row Records back in the day. This was kind of the straight out of Compton stuff. And over here at Uprocks, it says Death Row Records was purchased and is now owned by Hasbro Toy Company.
So weird.
Death Row Records, the iconic record label founded in 1991 by Suge Knight, the DOC, and Dr. Dre, has changed ownership. At its peak, the record label once signed iconic rappers like Tupac Shakur and Snoop Dogg, but after its heyday, the record label became embroiled in controversies, lawsuits, and imprisonment of co-founder Suge Knight. Death Row Records filed for bankruptcy in 2006 and was quickly picked up by an entertainment agency, but the record label's ownership has changed hands. It is now owned by Hasbro, the worldwide toy and board game company, who also owns the license for Star Wars toys, FYI. The deal followed Hasbro's acquisition of Entertainment One, which it just attained in a deal for $4 billion, according to Deadline. Hasbro's most popular games and toys are the well-known Monopoly, G.I. Joe, Transformers, and My Little Pony. They were interested in the deal in order to gain the rights to Entertainment One's brands like Peppa Pig, but they also ended up with the Death Row catalog as part of the purchase. Death Row has changed ownership several times since filing for bankruptcy in 2006. The first company to pick up the record label was Wide Awake Entertainment, who later sold the label to Entertainment One for 15 times the price. The Game, Joe Budden, and DJ Khaled have all released music with Entertainment One, but their masters now belong to the toy company Hasbro. Hasbro CEO Brian Goldner said he's looking forward to furthering their family-oriented brand. The acquisition of Entertainment One adds beloved story-led global family brands that deliver strong operating returns to Hasbro's portfolio and provides a pipeline of new brand creation driven by family-oriented storytelling, which will now include Hasbro's IP, he said. Clearly, Goldner was not talking about Dr. Dre's The Chronic. So, Matt, how family-friendly do you think Death Row Records is? Are we going to be getting Snoop Dogg dolls coming out the line, Suge Knight action figures?
I doubt it. While you were reading that, I pulled up Hasbro's line of brands that they have out there, and I'm just trying to see where it'll fit in there. Really
I don't think that was part of the plan. Yeah, I think that, like you said in the story, it was just part of that acquisition. But looking up Entertainment One, they do have a large roster of musicians, so they must have a record label already or something.
Yeah, they do. They mentioned in an article that they got people like DJ Khaled and
they got The Game, they've got En Vogue, they've got let's see here. There's a couple other names. Ace Frehley of Kiss. I think I've seen Joan Baez on here. Chuck Berry. I mean, they've got some names. So I mean, they may utilize this. Now, as far as their movies, this is kind of, I thought that's what it was about at first until this article, because it was like, oh, they got the company for Peppa the Pig and shit, and they just wound up getting
by accident getting
and it may help them out because Hasbro's trying to start their own movie thing now, and they can draw from that for soundtracks. I mean, what's always the hot, there's always these rap hits from the 90s and aughts that are always popping up in movies nowadays, all the time.
You see it in the landscape of LA, you hear California Dreamin',
California Love.
Yeah, that's kind of become synonymous with LA,
Yeah, for sure.
Well, and not only that.
What's that, Tom? Tom?
Did we lose him?
Oh, we might have lost him.
That's what I said. That was my problem. I'm through my phone. Somebody tried calling me. I'm back.
Oh, for some reason, my camera's getting all blurry on me.
Yeah, you went out of focus. There you go. But all I said was, I think Straight Outta Compton kind of made gangster rap a little bit more mainstream too.
Yeah, but it's funny because now Hasbro does have the option to do whatever they want with this music and stuff like that. What's a toy company going to do with music? It's kind of interesting.
Well, the movies. That's where I play. They're working on movies now, so that'll come in handy.
Obviously, they would put them in their movie stuff a little bit easier. But it makes you wonder, is Hasbro going to start its own record label to kind of cover this stuff?
Well, if they acquired Entertainment One with all the musicians they have, they might as well combine the two. Because I couldn't even tell, and the list was so long, I just closed it out because it was just on and on and on. Yeah, a lot of them aren't huge musicians, but that's quite a catalog if you combine the two.
Yeah. And Thomas Berg says Peppa Pig and Death Row, LOL. Yes. I could see Peppa Pig smoking the Chronic. She drives.
All I know is if they come out with a 3-pack action figure set of Snoop, Dr. Dre, and Eminem, I'm buying it.
I'm right there with you, Matt. I think that Hasbro just made $1 billion off of that idea alone. That would be great, especially for all of us who kind of grew up in.
Snoop could have a hand accessory with a joint or something, and it could be great.
Snoop Dogg actually appears in kids programming.
He's got a bunch of kids.
Well, my kid was watching some cartoon on Netflix, and Snoop Dogg just shows up, and he's like this mechanic for this machine that all these cartoon characters were using. And I was sitting there, and I turned to my girlfriend. I was like, "Is that Snoop?"
You do realize he's been in the music industry for almost 30 years, right?
Oh yeah. But I mean, just seeing him on a kid's show.
I know, and we're sitting here laughing about it because it's like, oh, the Death Row Records.
I've
You realize most of their catalog's probably 20 years old.
I've got a really great idea for a Thunderdome desert action playset with for the California Love Song with all the with the Tupac and everybody in their outfits. It'd be great.
Yeah, like do you guys remember back when Death Row was at its height and all this gangster rap was coming out and how like controversial these songs were? And now
hell yeah!
Now we listen to them and it's just like, that's tame.
And the East Coast, West Coast wars.
Well, that's what I was saying. Yeah, I was always an East Coaster, so Death Row was my jams. Yeah, or West Coaster. Right? I see East, of course, I'm in West. Yeah. So yeah, I was more into Tupac and all that. I didn't care for Biggie, and I hate fucking Puff Daddy. Can't stand.
I don't like him either.
Nobody likes Puff Daddy.
So here we go. We're starting the war up again.
Well, wouldn't it be funny? Hasbro and Mattel, they start drawing the battle lines.
Now from Hasbro, Death Row Records play set. You can't get me, Biggie.
Mattel buys out Puff Daddy's empire and adds the Biggie soundtrack to their stable.
Puff Daddy and Biggie and Tupac sold separately. Help me, Dr. Dre. Help me, Dr. Dre.
I got some thoughts in my head that I could say, but I'd get in trouble. So. with the BMW car on the.
Oh yeah, why Suge's in prison right now? That's the other thing. Suge's in prison, so that's why this company's probably been sold like 50 fucking times.
They said that it filed for bankruptcy in 2006 and has been sold and resold.
Yeah. Every day on my way home from work, I see the place, the car museum that has the BMW that Tupac got shot in. It's one of their big advertising points that they put in there.
Well, and then Suge went and ran somebody over on the set of Straight Outta Compton. That's why he's in prison right now.
Good old Suge. All right, guys. So we're going to move from talking about Death Row to talking about Black Adam. And we've got some news here that the Black Adam movie is gearing up to go forward. We were talking about The Flash a little bit earlier, but this time Dwayne Johnson has kind of confirmed this stuff, and he's going to be the lead in this movie. So this is from Heroic Hollywood. Headline: Dwayne Johnson's Black Adam eyeing spring 2020 start date with Hawkman. This is by Nathaniel Braille. Dwayne Johnson's Black Adam is eyeing 2020 production start date, and he's bringing DC Comics icon Hawkman with him. Dwayne Johnson has had a long road to getting his Black Adam film made. He was originally set to appear in Shazam as the main antagonist until he and the studio decided to go a different route, giving Black Adam a solo film instead. The actor normally has a busy shooting schedule, and other projects took precedence, but now it looks like that's no longer the case. After years of waiting, we finally know when Dwayne Johnson will shoot his Black Adam film. According to a source with knowledge of the project, Dwayne Johnson's Black Adam is eyeing shooting in April 2020 after Red Notice finishes up, and it will have the anti-hero face-off against Hawkman. This confirms earlier reports by that hashtag show that Hawkman will have a major role in the film. Black Adam and Hawkman have a long history in the comics, so it makes sense that Dwayne Johnson included him in the movie. As described by fandom, Hawkman is a winged vigilante who fights crime using a flight harness made from nth metal and a mace. There have been several different versions of the character, along with love interests and partners such as Hawkgirl. Hawkman has made several live-action appearances before. The character appeared in Smallville and most recently on DC's Legends of Tomorrow. Hawkman coming to the big screen should come as no surprise, as DC has been pushing the character in live action for quite some time. And that's that. So, guys, Tom, your Midnight's Ed partner, Rob, liked to joke that, so what, that Hawkman's coming to the movies, he just dies all the time.
Yeah, so, he's the Dayfly of the DC comics.
Yeah, so what do you think? What do you think of Hawkman being the antagonist to Black Adam?
Honestly, I'm still surprised that Warner Brothers and DC is pushing this whole thing with The Rock being a villain. And how much of it is going to be Rock being the villain, and how much are they going to twist around and make Hawkman more of the villain? Because Hawkman...
Oh, we lost him.
I lost you for a second, then I lost myself. Yeah, I'm on my stupid phone. Sorry, guys.
You're back.
Okay, yeah, Hawkman is one of those characters. I suppose you could twist him to be a bad guy either way, I suppose. But what are they going to do with this? I just don't understand making The Rock a villain. Is it because he's bald and you can't make him Superman? I don't know. It's
The
just
thing about Black Adam is that he's not really a villain necessarily. Like, I mean, yeah, he is kind of Shazam's antagonist, but in the comics, from what I understand, he's more of a gray character. He's kind of like
well, I know he's fought Superman before and a few other things. Yeah,
but he kind of walks that line between being a bad guy and being the anti-hero.
So is that what they're going to do with this then? Is make him more of a anti-hero and make Hawkman more of the villain?
Well, I think Hawkman's definitely going to be his antagonist. That doesn't mean that Hawkman's a bad guy. It just means that he's going to be the one who's going to be fighting Black Adam. And definitely they will probably set up a spin-off Hawkman stuff because there's all types of things that you can do with the Hawkman. So I look at this as DC kind of setting up a spin-off in a way. But it would have been nice to see Black Adam in the Shazam movie. We got a little bit of him. Just very briefly, but for the most part, it just seems like this is an odd choice, in my opinion.
I'm not surprised because Shazam seemed to do all right. I don't think it was a huge hit, but it was received well, and I think it did okay at the box office. I don't have it in front of me here, but
yeah, it did okay.
I want to say it did 600-700 million altogether, something like that, or did it do more than that?
Pretty good movie too. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was pretty well received. I liked it. It would have made more sense to bring the Black Adam, or at least introduce him a little bit more into Shazam before they did this, because outside of the costume and like geeks knowing, I don't think the general audience is going to know much unless they plan on having Shazam show up in this movie too.
You can call me part of the general audience when it comes to Shazam and anything related to Shazam. I don't really know a lot about this character.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even
supposed to be a bad guy, but he's more of an anti-hero or something, right? It's according to the article. Or
kind of waffles. Like sometimes he's a straight up villain, other times he's kind of an anti-hero. It just depends on like his whole thing is about protecting this this mystical land that he's kind of conquered. So sometimes he does good things in regards to that. Other times he's just straight up a bad guy.
And whenever I think of Hawkman, I go to Buck Rogers in the 25th century with Hawk and his cool ass Falcon spaceship. So,
Well, the last incarnation of Hawkman that we got in Legends of Tomorrow was awful.
Well, I was gonna say, I remember him on one of those shows, but I don't know if I saw is that the one where they had the wife and him and they kept dying? And
yeah. And like he died like 2 episodes into the season, and like he was gone. And it was
that's all Arrowverse stuff, right?
Yeah.
I quit watching.
I fell out of all that too. Yeah. I don't know. Here's the thing with DC. I've noticed it's kind of funny with this Rock deal. They've had much better luck with casting lesser known actors than they have with the bigger named actors, it seems like. Well,
they've been wanting to work with The Rock for some time. He's been attached as Black Adam for quite a while. And I think that they just kind of decided, like, The Rock's a big enough star, we should give him his own movie. And I think The Rock was
that, yeah.
Does The Rock ever get a script that he doesn't want to make?
No.
I mean, that guy's in everything these days. It's crazy.
He's one of the highest paid actors in Hollywood right now.
He's shooting 3 movies as we speak. You guys realize that, right? Right at the same time, simultaneously.
And he just had a big movie come out.
He's constantly working, I swear.
Yeah.
Well, no, just like Ben Affleck didn't really seem to pan out for him, but Gal Gadot did. What's his face who plays Shazam seemed to work out pretty good. Sons of Aquamanarchy seemed to work out all right for him. These were lesser known people, and then you get like Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill and some of the bigger names that didn't quite pan out as well. It seems like, I don't know. Maybe this will be a different situation, but I mean, I guess if I want to see The Rock as a superhero, the last thing I would think of is Black Adam. I don't know.
Yeah, me too.
It's me.
Well, the interesting thing here is that if they do like a Black Adam standalone film, then it would make sense to set up a Shazam 2 where, Zachary Levi's Shazam faces off with Black Adam.
Because that's what I was saying before, though. They almost have to connect it in this movie. Otherwise, people like Matt, like he was just saying, like MattVader, sorry, because I know you want to be called Matt. So
Matt's fine.
well, I know, but there's two different Matts, so just to know who I'm talking about.
Okay.
Like Vader just said, he's part of the general audience, and outside of the costume, what signifies to you that these are part of the same universe? Nobody will know that, because Shazam is even just so. I'm surprised Shazam did as well as it did, and a lot of people that I talked to are like, "Oh, like that old TV show on Saturday mornings, like that's the only."
Yeah, I remember that TV show. That was a trip. I used to watch that and Underdog.
Yeah, I barely remember that show. I think I was like 6 when it was out. It was like 76, 77. It was like super old. So,
yeah. But the interesting thing about this Black Adam movie as well is that, Warner's has kind of said that they want to get away from the shared universe. But Shazam, it directly referenced like Spider-Man, Batman, or not Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, Aquaman. So
Shazam.
Tom, you're cutting out here, but basically, in addition, like with if Black Adam and Hawkman are going to be coming out together, then that introduces Hawkman into the Shazam universe, and so Shazam seems to be kind of the new center of connections for all these movies that are coming out that are supposedly supposed to be like separate,
Well, I think part of that was because Shazam successfully integrated itself into the DC, I almost said MCU, DCEU, and also at the same time stood alone. Like there was enough callbacks to the other movie, but it was a completely different tone. And I think they finally realized, we can do this kind of like Marvel does.
They didn't need to add in all those connections in the movie. They could have easily
left them out
if they really wanted to kind of ditch this whole shared universe idea.
I don't think people would be as critical of a Shazam universe either, because everybody knows Superman and Batman and the Justice League people, whereas Shazam is kind of like always been kind of its own thing. It's like, I'm not going to compare a Shazam movie to 50 years of Justice League stuff that I know about, So.
Right. And Matt's right. I mean, it could have been on its own. You didn't have to connect it. The only thing you would have had to change is the one kid would have been into like comic books instead of being obsessed with like Batman and Superman and stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that's the only. I mean, he could have still been obsessed with them, but as like the fictional versions, not the cinematic versions that they tied to this version, which I kind of liked, because it's almost like a Deadpool thing to where it's like, yeah, they keep making fun of, they keep referencing him, but we'll never really get to see him, and then that's part of the joke at the end. Even though we know why we didn't get to see Superman's face, it works in the joke because they're so outside of Captain Marvel's world or whatever, Shazam's world, whatever you want to call him. Because I think they call him Shazam in the movie anyway.
They changed his name from Captain Marvel to Shazam officially. But it looks like we're definitely getting a Black Adam movie, and it looks like Hawkman is definitely going to be a part of that.
Cool.
So moving on, this is my favorite story of the day because I'm super excited about this, and that is that we are getting a adaptation of Metro 2033. And for those of you who don't know, Metro 2033 is this Russian kind of dystopian science fiction series that was successfully adapted into video games, really good video games. But now they're finally giving it the movie treatment. So this comes from Hollywood Reporter by Scott Roxborough. Headline, Gazprom Media to adapt sci-fi epic Metro 2033 as feature film. The film, like the hit video games, will be based on Dmitry Glukhovsky's post-apocalyptic novel set in the Moscow subway tunnels after a nuclear war. And the books are really good. I highly recommend you check them out. Russia Gazprom Media has acquired the rights to adapt the post-apocalyptic sci-fi franchise Metro 2033 as a feature film. Dmitry Glukhovsky's trilogy of Metro novels has been a global bestseller, and the series was turned into a hit series of first-person shooter video games by 4A Games and publishers THQ. The novels and games are set in the ruins of Moscow following a nuclear war, with survivors forced to live in the city's underground subway tunnels. Gazprom subsidiaries TNT Premier Studios, TV3 Channel, and Central Partnership will team up on the feature film version of Metro 2033. There have been several Hollywood attempts to adapt Metro 2033. MGM picked up the rights to the first book in 2012 with Scott F. Fraser Triple X, The Return of Xander Cage, attached to adapt the novel for the screen. It's probably a good thing he's not going to get a chance to do that. But the project was canceled reportedly due to Gluskovski's insistence that the film be set in Moscow and not Americanized. Good for him. Filming on Metro 2033 is set to start next year with a January 1st, 2022 delivery date. Metro 2033 is my first novel. I played a very special role in my life, and despite getting numerous offers to screen it, I turned them all down for over 10 years, Gluskovski said in a statement. But now I finally met a team that I can entrust Metro with. Our ambitions turned out to be similar, to create a world-class blockbuster and stun even those who have read the trilogy and know it by heart. Valery Fedorovich, who will produce Metro 2033, said that the books and video games have become embedded in the cultural code of sci-fi fans and gamers all over the planet. Fedorovich called Metro 2033 a dream project and said it was the most ambitious large-scale film ever launched by Gazprom Media. Now, the Metro series, it's a trilogy of books, so they have the template for a really good kind of dystopian science fiction action-adventure series here. Matt, what do you think of this news? Are you excited about this? Did you ever play the games?
Again, no, I never played the games and I haven't read the books, but just judging from the article, it seems like something that's rife for making into a series of movies. I mean, I love dystopian nuclear fallout future type movies and stuff. I'm excited for it. It should be fun to watch.
Yeah, Tom, one of the cool things about the Metro series is that it's very claustrophobic. It's got a lot of horror elements into it because there are mutated rats and stuff in the tunnels. And there are all these fractured societies that are kind of like struggling against each other for resources and things like that. What do you think of the potential for this franchise to actually be a hit?
There's a good possibility for it. I'm not very familiar with it, like Mr. Vader. This is the first time kind of really hearing anything much about it. But if it's done well, it has potential. I mean, we've seen things like, recently, like even though Mad Max, the new Mad Max movie, didn't do as well in the box office, it was still really well received. A lot of video games set in the post-apocalyptic eras are very popular. It's a really great place to have fun in because you don't have a lot of the drawbacks of society. I mean, a lot of things that kind of kill the momentum of movies nowadays is like, oh, well, we got a cell phone, that'll fix everything. So there's always that problem. There's always, the little things like that. And the way society is set up to where a post-apocalyptic story is always ripe for, anything to go down in. And if you got a situation like this that sounds really interesting, then if it's done well, it can do well. I mean, notoriously at the box office, I don't think post-apocalyptic films generally do well for some reason, but they still do have an audience.
Well, much like The Witcher, this movie, it not only has a hardcore base of fans for the books, but also for the video games. The video games have been really good and popularized this IP. And I like that the author himself is kind of supporting this in the sense that, he refused to make it Americanized. He wants it to be kept in Russia. The fact that Gamesprom is involved with TNT Premier Studios, is that a Marvel, or I'm sorry, is that a Warner Media thing there, Tom? Do you know?
If it's connected with TNT, the channel, then yeah. TNT Studios, you said?
TNT Premier Studios.
Premier Studios? It would probably be then.
But I feel like that this is pretty exciting news, especially for fans of the series, to finally get to see this world realized.
Actually, it looks like it's its own Russian company.
Okay.
From the look of things here.
So Gamesprom is probably a Russian company as well.
Probably, yeah, because you can get the Russian site for Premiere, or you can get to the regular one. And it looks like it's its own thing.
Yeah, I wonder if this is going to be like a Russian language, thing, kind of like what was that one guy's films where Night Watch, I think it was called. You guys remember those movies, the Night Watch movies?
Not offhand.
Well, they were kind of the movies that launched the career of. Let me look him up because he did a couple of big American movies that didn't do too well.
So it kind of reminds me more of what they used to do with like spaghetti westerns and stuff. Like,
Yeah. Let me just go on IMDb real quick. No, it was like a Russian film. Who did Abe Lincoln Vampire Hunter?
I can't remember the author's name now.
It wasn't the author I'm talking about. Timur
All
Bekmambetov, the director. So he's the guy. He did Wanted, which was the Angelina Jolie movie based off the comic book. He also did the Night Watch movies. That's how I knew him. But I think his last movie was Ben-Hur, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah. So Ben-Hur was that huge disaster for Paramount. And
I'd forgotten they even remade that. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. It kind of reminds me of his movies because Night Watch, it was a big Russian production. It was a big hit over in Russia. It was Russian language, and then it came over to America where it was dubbed and kind of like remastered. And it had a big theatrical release out here and kind of launched Timur Bekmambetov, however you pronounce his name, his career in Hollywood. So I'm excited about this. Hopefully it'll come to America in some way, shape, or form, and we will get to see it in all of its Russian glory. Anyway, guys, we've talked about everything I wanted to talk about. Thank you so much for coming on the Legion of Doom show. Why don't you tell people where they can find out more about you, Mr. Vader?
MattVader 74 on Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram, and MattVader on Mixer.
Mr. Connors, why don't you tell everyone where they can find out more about you?
Well, of course, you can always find my work at Midnight's Edge After Dark. You can find me on Twitter at Thomas Connors Jr. with a ORS.
All right. Thank you to all the supervillains and evil geniuses who joined me today. And guys, thank you so much for tuning in and watching. And this is Matthew Kadish. I will catch you guys in the next video. See you soon.